Check, 1, 2. Check, check. Let's see if we've got audio this time. Check, 1, 2. All right, we're going to see if we get audio here. Check, check. Check, 1, 2. Yeah, that should be fine. That should be fine. Somehow it turned off on me. So, I'm going to redo the intro. Thank you for the updates in the chat. I appreciate that very much. We're going to roll it again right from the top. So just pretend like that didn't happen. It's just live. It's nothing to be completely embarrassed about. Take 2. Hello and welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is Monday, August 19th, 2019. My name is Kerry Holzman, and today we're going to continue with the $3,000 gaming build. That's this machine right here. And I put on the same shirt so that when this all goes through editing, it'll all look like one continuous piece nonstop. Magic. Welcome in, everybody. And I want to give a quick shout out and thank you to whoever sent me a couple of bags of the Walker's Smoky Bacon crisps from London. Those of you who have followed the channel know that this is one of my favorite things on the planet. Why they're not sold in America, I don't know, but to whomever the stranger, the kind stranger was who mailed me 2 big bags like this, I'm not worthy. Thank you. And you, your days are numbered. I'm gonna put you right there for later. How is everybody today? Welcome in. We've got about 260 people in the chat. Welcome in, everybody. And let's take a quick look here in the chat. Hello to all my friends in blue there, Tony Wallow, Gil Garcia, Artec, Darren Gilholm, Carolina Born, OG Gaming, Catherine Anna Hauserman joins us, Patrick Manny, Dave Burry, Patrick Russo, John Feinor, Gary Oa, Dimitri, William Dawson, Jim G, Luke Greenia, Thomas Carter, John Brady, James Duke, Philip Musto, Scotty 1D, Donald Sample, John Peck. Boy, there's a bunch of you in there. So welcome in, everybody. And, ooh, somebody's calling me on Facebook. Well, somebody... Hello?
I was gonna call you.
Hey, I just went live on YouTube. Do you want to be a star?
Sure. Heck yeah.
Well, I was saying hello to my audience when you FaceTime me here, or whatever you want to call it on Facebook, Messenger. And but I do want to get back to the audience, but I wanted to let you know I'm not ignoring you. But we can talk later.
No, I didn't mean to call you.
That's okay.
That's it.
Oh, sure. Sure. That's what they always tell me.
What's the channel?
Just look for Kerry Holzman on YouTube.
Good enough, easy enough.
Yep.
Awesome.
All right. Talk soon.
There.
Bye. So that's a friend of mine named John. I've known John since I was about 12 years old. So he and I haven't talked in a long time or been connected for a long time. So he's not aware of all this stuff going on here. That is the only reason that you guys know me. So anyway, Madi's just contributed $10. Hey, thank you, Madi. Thanks for your contribution. And I think I missed another one a little earlier here. Yes, from Madi again, $5. And James Duke contributed £9.99. Said, sorry, I've been AWOL for a while. I got a note from my mom, but I'm back. He's got a note for his excuse tardiness, his absence. I'm back. Been watching all the videos, though. Right on. Chester Hughes has contributed $2. All right, Madi, James, Chester, thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. I do appreciate that very much. And yeah. So where we left off here with the build is we did our first power on self-test with it, and just very brief, just excuse me, very brief, just to make sure that the system gave us the BIOS. Man, I'm having some problems talking today. Hold on. You know what I need? I need some of this. Better. In the chat, somebody wants to know what a good budget gaming PC is. I don't know. It depends. Are you playing budget games? Jeremy Kramer's contributed $10. Keep up the good work, Kerry. Here's another case of Coke for you. Right on. Thank you, Jeremy. About ready to get another one here. If you're new to the channel or you've been missing out on some of the videos, I had a couple of little cameos which are fun. One, over the years, off and on, I've heard people say that I reminded them or looked like Jon Lovitz. Now, there's a lot of celebrities I wish people would say I look like. Charlie Sheen, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, just to name a few. Jon Lovitz is not on that list. I love you, John. I'm sorry, but yeah. So this is just going on and going on and going on. So finally, there's a website, and it's called Cameo.com. And at Cameo.com, you can hire celebrities who wish to participate to make a personal message to you. And the price varies depending on the celebrity. Like I would love to hire Gary Busey, but I can't afford him. In fact, I could hire Charlie Sheen, but I can't afford him. And so I paid the money and asked Jon Lovitz to comment on this. People say that I look like him, but I think he looks like me. I don't think it's me look like him. And so John responded, and I posted that response video. It is the real Jon Lovitz. Some people are like, wow, these deep fakes are looking real. Deep fake would have been a lot cheaper. But regardless of that, John did an awesome job, and I'm forever grateful because that was really cool. He had no idea. He has no idea who I am, which is fantastic. And he still took the time to do it. So if you haven't seen that video, check it out. It's in the video library. It just posted a couple days ago. It was hilarious. And then a guy who does Peter Griffin from Family Guy also did a cameo. And he's got a YouTube channel here, and he is amazing. He's fantastic. So that was just a lot of fun. And that one was really inexpensive. In fact, I might bring him back a few more times because he's that good. That being said, if you haven't checked it out, please do. Jon Lovitz was worth every penny, or every penny spent was worth it. So in the meantime, there was something else I wanted to mention before I got started, and I can't remember what it was. I'm sure it'll come back to me. Also know that we do have the Quick Tips video series, which is another channel if you're just interested in getting in and out as quickly as possible. My sister edits these videos down into questions and answers. We try to keep it under 10 minutes in length. And so for those of you who'd like to hang out with me, it's really interesting to see the people who don't get it, the people who are like, took this guy half an hour to put a power supply in. Yeah, we're hanging out. These are people who don't understand socializing. So this is sort of virtual socializing. You're hanging out in my kitchen. We're not under the gun. Nobody's cracking a whip. We're enjoying each other's company. And if that's your thing, have a seat, stay a while. If not, the door's right over there. Clinky, clinky. All right. And we got about 458 people watching live now. That's fantastic. And so what I was thinking of doing right now is updating the BIOS if it needs it. So what I've done is I went to the Gigabyte website support section for this motherboard here, which is the Z390 AORUS Pro. And you can just go to Google and type in Z390 AORUS Pro BIOS and hit enter. And the first link that Google presents to you should take you directly to the support page for this board. We click on downloads or support and then BIOS, and then we'll check the version of the BIOS versus the version available. Now, if the version is several versions behind, you don't have to update every interval. You just update the latest one. So if there's been 4 new updates You don't need all four. You only need the most recent one, and it takes care of everything. You don't have to, you only flash the BIOS once. You wouldn't, once you flash the BIOS, you shouldn't need to flash it again until another update comes out. So you always just want the latest update. Craig Huchin has contributed $5. Thank you, Craig. Why do you update the BIOS? Isn't it just for people who are experiencing problems? Sure, if you think backwards. But if you think forwards, you update the BIOS so you don't become one of those people who experiences problems because they needed a BIOS update. See what I'm saying? You got to reverse the way you're thinking about it. Or at least I do, because I want my customers to have a great experience, and I want to reduce the odds that they're going to have any problems with any machines that I build and deliver for them. So I make sure everything is updated. All the Windows updates, the BIOS is updated, everything is up to date. It's critical because the internet is constantly evolving. In the time that I've spent talking, 800 billion new viruses were released. Okay, that may be a little bit of an exaggeration, but even if it's one, then it's one you're not protected for. So you have to make sure you have all the latest updates. That includes Windows updates, that includes Adobe updates, and Java updates, and Flash updates, and Microsoft Office updates, and updates to your updates. You need to update your updater so that you stay up to date. There's a prune joke in there somewhere, but I'm not doing it. Let's hook this up and see what version of BIOS we've got. So I've got my HDMI cable right here. We're using onboard video right now because I don't have the graphics card installed yet. We're going to get to that after all this. And then I've got to give it some power, which I will plug in right here, like so. I got the BIOS copied onto a small 2 gig flash drive. You can use pretty much any flash drive now, but smaller the flash drive, the better. Sometimes you need to format it in FAT32, which can be a problem if a flash drive's over 32 gigs in size, but I won't get into that for right now. It depends how old the computer is. More modern computers, I believe, will read NTFS, but the older ones may require you to be in FAT32 or it won't see the BIOS file. So what does all that mean? I won't get into it. I've got other videos that explain this in more detail if what I'm saying doesn't make sense to you. And for the rest of us, we're just going to keep moving forward. Just stay with the group. Don't lag behind. It'll all make sense in time. All right. Let me get this keyboard plugged in here. Where's my keyboard dongle? Do I need the dongle in? Where is it? Yeah, I left it in. Okay, so let's turn this back on. It should go right to the BIOS. Remember, I didn't hook up the fans or the RGB. That's all the same connector. And then let's go to that camera input, which is right over here. All right. So somewhere on this screen, let's see. I have to make my screen bigger because it's too small. Here it is. Okay. It says we're using BIOS version F9. So F9, if you look in the upper left corner where it's yellow, it says information, then it says MB, that's motherboard, it's the Z390 AORUS Pro. And then there's the CPU, tells us about CPU. But anyway, right between where it says CPU mother, it says BIOS ver F9. The latest version is F10, which I have downloaded and extracted onto a flash drive I label as BIOS. And I'm just going to plug that in any USB port here. I think I'm going to pick a blue one, even though it really doesn't matter. We'll plug that in. And then I want to go to somewhere on the screen. It says, I want to go to the classic settings. So right down at the bottom, it says classic F2. If you look way down in the bottom center. So I'll hit F2. And I'm going to go all the way to the right at the very top. And it says, they moved it. It used to be tools. Oh, bottom right corner says Q flash is F8. So I'm going to press F8. And then it says update BIOS is highlighted in yellow. So that's what I want to do. So I hit enter. And it's already seeing the flash drive there. So I can I can either use the tab key to move around and select that file, use the arrow keys and the tab key. So I've just highlighted it. You can use your mouse, but I'm trying to be clever. Is it working? And I'll hit enter, and one more time. Now it verifies it's the right file, and it asks if you want to do a fast or an intact. The text that's yellow down there, this is so hard. Down at the opposite of what you see, of what I see is the opposite of what you see. My left, your right. If you look down at the bottom right, your right, it'll say intact is highlighted in yellow. So these are all the defaults. We're gonna stick with the defaults by just simply pressing enter. And now it's updating the BIOS. This whole thing about BIOS updating being dangerous or scary or potentially hazardous is well overblown. Well, that used to be the case back in the 1990s, maybe even the early 2000s. You know technology moves quickly. You know that as well as I do. This is not a secret. As a result, BIOS updating has pretty much been resolved with regards to risk, with one exception. If you're somebody who can't leave your computer alone and you turn it off during this process, or if you have a power outage while this is occurring, then you could have an issue with the motherboard even starting up again without having to send it back to the manufacturer. Now, there are some manufacturers that do have recovery for the BIOS, a bad BIOS update. Some of them have a recovery option. But the odds of you needing it, like if you download the wrong BIOS, it won't even let you flash. It'll just say, nope, it ain't right. Won't let you do it. And if you live in an area that has a lot of power outages, you should have an uninterruptible power supply that you're running that on so it doesn't become an issue. Other than that, you just leave it alone. As you see, I'm not touching anything. There's both my hands. And the machine is running behind me and it's automatically rebooting itself. I'm just letting it be. And I'm going to continue to let it be until it's done. And you'll know it's done because it'll take us back into the BIOS, or it'll try and boot and say there's no bootable device. At that point, we're done. In the meantime, it may turn itself off and on several times. Leave it alone. If you don't leave it alone, then you're going to be one of those people on the internet going, the BIOS update ruined my computer. Yeah. No, you ruined your computer because you didn't follow the very simple steps. How much easier is leave it alone? Hold on, let me write this down. You see it's rebooting a couple of times there. And we're done, and we look back in the same area on the BIOS. Now it says the BIOS version is F10. What's the difference? What did they do in F9 that they changed in F10? Don't know, don't care. I just know that it went through all the testing, it went through all the betas, and that's the latest version. And if you were to buy this board right now today, direct from the manufacturer, that's the version of BIOS that would be on the motherboard. But what happens is the motherboard manufacturer makes them, puts the BIOS on at the time of manufacture, then it gets distributed, it goes to a warehouse, it gets sold to a retailer, the retail warehouses it. It may sit on a retailer's shelves for weeks or months before you purchase it, and then however long it takes for the mail to deliver it to you, or perhaps you went into a retail store and bought it. There's still shipping time involved in getting the motherboard from the manufacturer to the point of sale, and then from that to when you bought it, and then you might sit on it for 2 weeks before you get around to it. So there could be a new BIOS update that had been released in that distribution window, which could range anywhere from a couple of weeks to over a year. So that's why that happens. And primarily why we don't install off CDs and DVDs anymore, because when it comes to software, the same problem happens. By the time you buy a piece of software that's been packaged and put on a shelf and you get it home, it's already been updated. So just go to the website for the manufacturer, download the latest version so that you're not putting on more versions than you need to. You're less likely to have any problems, and it's time efficient, right? I mean, you're just going to do it once and be done with it. So that's the logic behind that. And so now we've got the BIOS completely updated, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the power button and turn this off. Very good. And then we can turn off camera number 2 there, because we don't need that right this second. There it goes. Now, what did I miss? Michael Shaw wants to know what printer I use. I've got a Samsung laser printer, but Samsung sold off their laser printer division to HP quite a while ago. So it's not a printer you can buy. If I was going to buy a laser printer now, probably look at Brother or Xerox as my choice. And it's a wireless laser printer with a scanner on top. But what I really liked about it, what attracted me to it, was it's only about yay big. The big, you know, the Brother printer's like this big, it's big. And so it's hard to make room on a shelf, like you can't open the lid for the scanner if it's on a shelf. But it works, so I'm not ready to replace it yet anyway. Okay, I think I'm caught up here. So I think what I want to do right now, so there's no real set order to how to build a machine. We can build it many different ways. This is one example. If you've never built a computer before, you can follow my steps. And if you follow them exactly the way I show them in the same order, then you have every reasonable expectation to have the same results that I have. If you skip ahead, if you change the order of events, or you don't follow the steps exactly as I show, or handle the parts as I show, your results may then vary accordingly. Maybe, maybe not. So that's up to you to decide. They're your parts, and you have every right to handle them any way you want. It's not for me to say. But when somebody pays me to build a computer for them, and I've been doing this professionally for 29 years, there's an order that I have that comes from doing it 30,000 times or whatever it's been. So that being said, that's not the only way to do it. It's not the only right way to do it. So I don't want you to walk away from it saying that that's the way you have to. If you've never done it before, it'd be hard for you to justify doing it a different way. But if you have done it before, then you know what way works well for you. I just show the way that works right for me. We good? Good. All right. Let's get, I don't know, let's put Windows on it. Let's just put Windows on it. Why not? This BIOS flash drive, I'm going to erase the BIOS file on it, so this flash drive will be empty and available for the next system that I'll be doing. And I've got a ton of work coming up both this week and next week, because I got to get out of here second week of September, going out to Grand Rapids, Michigan for the big meetup and the big convention. Hope you guys are going to be there. It's called TechCon Unplugged, and we're doing a meetup on Friday, September the 20th, and then the event continues throughout Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which will be the 22nd of September. And I hope I see you guys out there. I really do. It'd be great to meet many of you face to face. Some of you I have met before. It'll be great to see you again. And it's just going to be a good time. And if you are considering being self-employed as a tech, or you already are, and you're looking to grow your business or find other ways to get more business, this is the place you want to be. Forget the meet and greet. This is a place you want to be to grow your business if you're serious about it, because you will meet contacts there, and there will be lots of panels to discuss everything from marketing and services that can be offered from people in the industry, not from people who are just motivational speakers and have done nothing. These are actual successful working people who have done it, and they're going to share with you how they did it. So if that's important to you, that's a pretty rare thing to find, you know, for small scale. Usually this stuff happens on a big scale, like ChannelCon and stuff like that, which, you know, they say it's invited for the little guy, but not so much. Not in my experience. So what I've got here, I've got Windows 10 on a flash drive right here. Now I do have a video that explains how you can download Windows 10 for free from Microsoft and make this flash drive yourself. It's not piracy. It's just installed in a trial mode. It'll install and work just fine. However, you will have a watermark that says that you're not activated, and that will remain forever, and customization features will be disabled until you activate Windows. You see, Windows is free. It's the activation codes that you're paying for. So you can download Windows. You've always been able to download Windows from Microsoft for free, completely legal. It puts it in trial mode. You're not familiar with trial mode? Like every piece of software you've ever installed that gives you a few days free, or it is limited in scope until you pay the money. Windows is no different than that. So when you pay the money, then it activates. That's the only difference. So I'm going to install Windows 10 Pro on this machine right here, only because I'm a system builder and I can get Pro really cheap. It's not even worth my time to buy Windows Home. Honestly, for the price difference, you might as well just get Pro and be done with it. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this in back here. I'm going to choose a blue USB port because those are the USB 3s. That's a USB 3 flash drive. They're 16 gigs. That flash drive will read and write darn near the speed of an SSD. So it's a $20 flash drive. So I realize you can buy a 16 gig flash drive for $4. Your Windows install is going to take 4 to 6 times longer than mine because I spent more money on my flash drive and got a faster one. So I'll be done before you will. So there, yeah, I'm better than you. I'm really impatient. That's really what it amounts to. So I just want to get it done. So I get the fastest flash drive and I use the heck out of it. So you'll see it's automatically booting to this flash drive because the solid state drive we've installed is brand new out of the box. It's never been partitioned, never been formatted. It has no operating system on it. So when I plug that flash drive in back here, the system, when it turns on, it says, can I boot to a CD or DVD? One does not exist in this case. Can I boot to a hard drive or a solid state drive? There's only one solid state drive. It has no partition or format, so it can't boot to it. Then it goes, well, are there any USB devices or network I can boot from? I can't boot from the network. I don't have a network plug plugged into it. Besides, I don't have PXE enabled servers, stuff like that. So anyway, so bottom line is that's the only thing it can possibly boot from. And it's smart enough to try and boot from any particular source. When I was updating the BIOS, it had nothing to boot from, so it just went right into the BIOS, remember? This time it didn't go into the BIOS, it started on the flash drive. I didn't make any adjustments to the computer. You've been watching me the whole time live. This is all automated. Now that we're here on this screen, we'll click, where's my mouse? Gotta turn it on, Carrie. Turn the mouse on. All right, we're gonna go over here, we'll click next. And we're gonna hit install now. And I should stand over here, shouldn't I? This is your standard Windows 10. What I always do, always do, is look right down here at the bottom of the screen. What does it say? Read it to me. What does that say? It says, I don't have a product key. Even if you have a product key, tell it you don't have a product key. That's how you install Windows 10 for free, legally. But it determines what version of Windows 10 to install when you give it the product key. So if you're going to skip the product key step, then it needs to know what version of Windows do you want to install. So if I select I want to install Windows 10 Pro, and then later I try and activate it with a Windows 10 Home product key, it no worky. So know what version you've got. Let's make this a little bigger so I can see it, because I can't really see it very well on my screen. Let's go like that. So right now it's on Windows 10 Home. I want to select Pro, hit next. It's going to ask where I want to install it. Well, probably going to bring me an end user license agreement, yeah, which you have no choice. You know, be sure and read all that because we're going to test you on it tomorrow at noon. Okay, did you get all that? And then click next. We're going to do custom. Always choose custom. And you'll see there's only one drive that we can install to. That's drive 0, which is 2 terabytes in size. That is our Samsung 970 Plus 2 terabyte solid state NVMe M.2. Yes, that was all English I just spoke. We'll hit next and just let it do its thing. Windows is going to automatically partition, format, and then install Windows 10 on this drive. And it's going to be, I predict, an incredibly fast install. I'm going to just bring this back down here. In fact, I should just move this to the other side. Let's put it up here. And let's see how long this takes. I think it'll be one of the fastest Windows 10 installs you've ever seen in your life. Why? Because it's a fast computer and it's a fast flash drive. Why? Because I've been patient. Duh. What are the benefits of the Pro version of Windows? Well, just Google that. Just type Windows 10 Home versus Pro, and you'll have all the answer. It's far too complex for me to get into. Some places have simplified it, but I'm not going to get into it. Also, I have a video on the channel that answers that. Sometimes people ask questions that I get a lot of, and so for that reason, the Quick Tips channel that I mentioned, that's on there. That's one of those under 10-minute videos that explains the difference. So yeah, that's why those videos are there. I hope you check them out. Where's my Coca-Cola? That's what I need right now while I'm waiting for this to install. Carl wants to know if we're done yet. Oh man, I was done before I got started. $811 people are watching. Welcome in if you're new here. We're happy to have you. All we ask is you be polite, be courteous, or say nothing. It's pretty simple here. We have a very supportive community here on the internet, and if you're just incapable of being supportive and incapable of having impulse control and think that it's a good way to get attention, you won't be here very long. But if you're kind and supportive, gosh, I hope you're here for every single broadcast, because we don't have enough people like you, because people like you are rare. You understand how rare you are? So I really appreciate each and every one of you. Was that a good tower to work on? Yeah, so I'm working on the Darkbase Pro, I think that's what it's called, 700 from Be Quiet. I really like this case. I really do like it. If I had a criticism, I'd have two so far. One is the price is a little steep. It's $180 for this case. I feel like this is about a $120 case. I feel like it's priced. It's a hard thing though, right? This is about value. So you are getting what you pay for, right? It's a $180 case. They charge $180 for it. But if they charge $130, that'd be a bargain. That's all I'm saying. The other issue I had was this gap up here at the top is a little bit narrow to get the CPU power cable in. If it was just another maybe 2 millimeters wide at the top where they raised the, yeah, they could actually drop this back tray down 2 millimeters. The tray's a little too tall in my opinion. But I can understand, well, no, I was gonna say if you flip it, maybe it goes the other way. Motherboard's still gonna install the same way. So if you, it's hard to see on the camera, but there's a good few 4 millimeters or more of motherboard tray above the top of the motherboard where that screw is. It doesn't need to go any further than that. It doesn't need to extend beyond the top of the board. In fact, it doesn't even have to reach the top of the board. As long as we can put the 3 screws in across the top, it's tall enough. And that's an ATX standard. It's never going to change with, well, it may change in the future, but it's not going to change any boards you put in that meet the ATX standard. So they could have reduced that, saved a little bit in manufacturing because they'd be using less material. It's not a lot of savings, but if they build a lot of cases, it adds up. And yeah, so far that's just it. Just $180 is a bit pricey for what you get, but it's also a really nice case. It's probably quality-wise one of the nicest cases I've worked on in quite some time. That's my honest opinion. Is it perfect? It's pretty close. Pretty close to perfect. Now me, I still like to have optical drives and things, but what do I know? I'm old. That's what the young people say. What do they know? But anyway, that's all going away. It's just a matter of time. And honestly, I think a lot of people like myself that want that optical drive don't even use it. Like, it just feels good to have it just in case, and then just in case never happens. And besides, you can get a USB optical drive and be done with it. Just plug it into a USB port when you need it. It's really not a big deal as long as you don't misplace it and can't find it. All right, so here it wants to know our geographic location. And I can't see it, so let's go big on this one more time so I can read it. Yeah. United States, America. US keyboard. Do I want a second keyboard layout for another language? Nope. Let's connect you to a network. I don't have Ethernet. See that? It's hidden. People are like, oh, it won't let me go for it. Yeah, you have to read your screen. They hide it, but you got to look for it. Same thing here. Look at the bottom. Your eye should immediately be drawn to fine print when you get stuff like this. Continue with limited setup. Yeah, it's limited, all right. Limited to my freedom. All right. Here we need to put a username in. I guess we're going to use, we'll put Madi's name in here, I guess. Is that what we're doing, Madi? I think we're putting Madi's name. Steve Anderson's contributed $5. Thank you, Steve. There's Madi. No password. We'll just let the user configure that at another time. I'm going to say no to this. And all these features I'm changing right now, these can be changed by the user when they receive the computer. Nothing I'm doing is permanent here. Like I turn all this stuff off. Now, if you see this, what we call the elevator bar or the scroll bar here, you can also hold the control button down on the keyboard and roll your mouse wheel, and you can make that smaller or bigger. Wait, that's not what I wanted to do. Yeah, well anyway, you can do that and you can make this fit on your screen, that's what I'm saying. So I've turned everything off. Location actually is useful to leave on. I'm going to leave location on, that way it can auto set the time zone for me. And then that's it. I don't know how long that took to install, but I think it was pretty quick. So it's just doing a few final things and, well, it's doing that. We'll just put this right up here. Steven's question is, what do you think of RTX GPUs? The RTX cards are fine. They're fine. I think they're overpriced. But if you want the fastest card that you can buy today, you look at the RTX cards. If you're looking for the best value, maybe the 1660 or what is it, the RX 570, something like that. I don't really know the Radeon cards that well. But basically, you've got your bargain cards, you got your best buy, best value or best bang for the buck cards, and then you've got your best you can buy. Now, what we've got here to install in this system is an RTX 2080 Ti. Now, if you've got $1,100 to burn on a graphics card, you're going to be hard-pressed to find anything better than that for that price, right? You have to significantly spend more money to go higher than that card. Windows 10 is going to be adding ray tracing into the operating system. And if you don't have an RTX card, get the ray tracing. But if you're not playing games and stuff like that, you wouldn't know anyway. So what difference does it make? So whether or not you like something, be it a graphics card or a meal at Arby's, is pretty much up to you and has nothing to do with anybody else's opinion. So buy what you like. Have a good time. It's your money. You've earned it. You deserve to buy whatever you want, regardless of what people on the internet tell you about what a bad decision you made. Don't listen to those people. If you're happy with your decision, job done. What anybody else thinks is irrelevant. Now, there's only a handful of games that take advantage of ray tracing. Ray tracing just gives you more photorealistic graphics, but I don't know. You could show it to some people and they won't see a difference, and other people are like, wow, what are you doing? Depends on you. Depends on what your priorities are, how detail-oriented you are, and how important that is, and how much money you have, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now that we have Windows 10 installed, I'm going to plug Ethernet in and download all the updates. So I'm going to grab an Ethernet cable, which I could have been doing while I was standing around talking. So let's plug it into the network and start getting these Windows 10 updates. Now you've noticed I have a Wi-Fi card I still have to put in. I've got the fans I still have to hook up. I'm done with this flash drive, so this can come out. We'll plug the network cable in here. And the reason I'm doing this is to make sure everything's working correctly. Let's say, for example, Windows 10 gets an error on install. Well, all those parts I haven't hooked up yet, I don't have to diagnose those as being part of the problem. So I'm trying to do as much as possible to ensure that everything I've done so far is correct. And if there is a problem, there's fewer parts to diagnose. So we're going to do Windows updates by hand. Now it's going to automatically do them anyway, but we're going to force it. We're just going to go right under here. And we're going to check updates right there. I just wish I could read my screen. It's too small for me. Let's bring it up a little bit. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's got some stuff to do. So we'll let that work. I'm looking through the chat room right now just to see if there's any questions I can answer while we're waiting for this to happen. Don't forget to turn daylight savings off for Arizona. The system is not going to stay in Arizona. The system is going to Florida. But when you select Arizona as your time zone in Windows, it automatically disables. That's the whole point of turning location settings on or leaving it on. It'll happen automatically based on your IP address, which could be an issue if you're somebody who uses a VPN and your VPN's in another country or another time zone. It may automatically switch your clock to the source of your IP address. So in that case, you want to turn location services off. But if you are that technical of a person, you don't need me to tell you that because you already know. And if you don't know what a VPN is, then it's nothing you have to worry about. So there, I'm so glad I brought it up. Clear? Perfectly clear. What? Mike says, I'm happy to see you on a live stream. I made it. Welcome in, Mike. Good to see you too. Will the 1903 update install automatically, or do you have to do it manually? It'll always install automatically when it's time. You can force it if you choose to, manually. Zerloth has contributed $2. Are you still on your first charge for the screwdriver? No, I charged it yesterday because the light was blinking on the power capacity of the battery. I'd have to go back in my video library to see when I purchased that screwdriver and the first time I used it. But I want to say it's 3 or 4 months I was on that initial charge. Granted, I don't use it a lot, but the fact that it remained charged and didn't, just discharge from sitting, which is what all of my NiCad batteries do. I just take it out of the drawer and it's good to go, and I can do what I need to do with it, put it away. And if I only have to charge it a handful of times a year, one less thing I got to worry about. So I am ecstatic about the capacity and the length of time that the battery lasts, or at least for doing this kind of work. Like if we're torquing down screws into 2x4s that require a lot of torque, that's going to eat more battery life more quickly. And that screwdriver just isn't designed for that. Get yourself an impact drill or something for that kind of work. For computer work, electronic work, that Milwaukee M4 is the red cordless driver you see me use. I'll buy that again in a heartbeat if I had to. Worth every penny. It's a good price. Better deal than the Panasonic that I also like. I'm thinking I like this Milwaukee better. The battery lasts longer. The screwdriver is a little bit lighter, and it's red. I don't know. So it goes faster. What's the best bang for your buck on a video card? Maybe the 1660. It kind of depends what you want to do with it, right? So if somebody was day trading and they just wanted to hook a bunch of monitors up, you wouldn't need to buy a very expensive card, and that would be the best bang for the buck for them. If you wanted to do 4K gaming on 2 monitors at the same time, with all the settings on high, then the best bang for the buck would probably be in, you know, completely different range. And if you're just looking generically at just playing like games at 1080 resolution, probably like the 1660 would probably be a best bang for the buck. Or what did I say? The RX 570, I want to say, if you're on the AMD side. Carrie, is that your streaming machine making all that noise in your video today? If you're hearing noise in the video, that's probably the air conditioner running. It is August in Phoenix, which is the absolute worst month to come out to the Valley of the Sun because it's high humidity and we've had record temperatures last week and record temperatures are predicted for this week. The Earth is warming up, as we all know. We debate over why, but regardless, the Earth is warming up. We have average higher temperatures year-round, at least across North America. I can't say about the other parts of the world, but presumably it's the same everywhere. So yes, this is the time of year where if you're going to hear my AC unit, it's going to be in August, July and August, but mostly August. And if my AC unit is going to die, it always happens in August. Go figure. How long did it take to charge the battery in the M4? You know, that's a good question because I was wondering that myself, but I was going to dinner. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna just put the battery in the charger, let it charge, and when I came home from dinner, it was charged. I don't know how long it took, but I'll figure it out eventually and I'll let you know. There may be a way for me to reduce the humming sound you're hearing, but you have to understand that it requires a bit of tweaking, which typically isn't done in a live video, but let me just try it. Let me grab a cheap pair of headphones here, because what I have to do is I have to listen to what you're hearing. And if I do that without headphones, it feeds back into the microphone, and then that feeds back out to the speakers, which feeds back into the microphone, which feeds back out to the speakers. It's not a pleasant experience. But these are just a cheap pair of headphones I've got here. Let's put these on and plug this in. Since we're waiting for these updates anyway, I can just tweak this a little bit. And we'll go to the OBS software under the audio filters. Let's see, I have to turn the muting off so I can hear. Monitor and output it. Check, check. Check 1, 2. And we go to filters. Check. Check. Check, check. Let's set that to default. And let's add another filter. Let's try the limiter. No, not the limiter, the noise gate. Let's get the noise gate. Now that should take care of the noise, but when I stop talking, it'll sound weird because it'll just go silent. But you guys might like that better. Let's try it and see what you think. I'm gonna just leave these headphones hooked up over here and we'll wait and see what we have on feedback for that. Ian McLeod's contributed $5. He says, I made my wife her new PC using the Mugen 5 screwdriver. Thank you for the video, sir. Well, thank you for the contribution, Ian. And it's awesome when I hear my viewers or, you know, read messages from them that through my encouragement, you're able to build your own machine and save a lot of money and have a sense of accomplishment for probably what will be the best computer you'll ever own with regards to reliability, performance, and value. People seem to be liking the sound is better. Good. I've been meaning to do that. I just haven't had time. Or when I have time, it doesn't occur to me I should do that. So I'm glad we got it done together. And you can understand sometimes when these broadcasts start late, it's because I'm configuring something. It's usually something to do with the video. Switching it from 4K back down to 1080 was a big pain in the butt because there were so many little things that I tweaked I couldn't remember. It's not like I've done it a million times and I know exactly where to change it. And then OBS has been updated numerous times. Speaking of updates, VLC is now updated to 3.0.8. So if you use the VLC media player, which I highly recommend, be sure you get the latest update released today. It's got 13 security fixes in it. Wild One says, I've been trying to donate, but YouTube keeps saying error, try again. Well, you can always use the PayPal link. You can go to tech-vets.com and you can submit a donation through TechVets. I don't see those when I'm live, but I do respond to those emails that I receive from PayPal. It kicks me an email when somebody contributes. And then I always write and say thank you. Although I'm a few days behind in responding. So if you did not get a response from me yet, it's on my list of things to do. Also, if it's been more than a week and you haven't heard from me, then it may have been in your spam filter or your ISP may have blocked it. But you can always reach out to me and verify it. Oh, the computer just went to sleep on us. Let's wake it back up. Wakey, wakey. All right, is it still downloading? I can't. It's just, screen's too small. Hold on. Let me make this bigger so I can read it. Scroll down, retry. The reason it'll say retry is because it's probably downloading the same updates automatically in the background. So it's trying to install the same update twice and it errors out. So that's why you have to hit retry. Ideally, in newer versions of Windows 10, at some point in the future, they will get smarter and put a stop to that. We'll see. Microsoft is adding a GPU temperature reading in the task manager, I believe is where it'll be. So you won't necessarily have to download a utility for that. Microsoft likes to do that. When they find people are downloading a third-party utility in mass, they like to include it as part of the operating system. Good for you and me, not so much good for the software developer whose software is no longer needed. Is it just picking up my breathing? Is that what it's doing? Could you stop breathing? It's really annoying. With the case you're using for this build, would it be suitable for water cooling? Yes, absolutely. Very ideal for liquid cooling. It's not water cooling, it's liquid cooling. Anybody that says water cooling, stop it. You're using a lot more than just water. There, you brought the nerd out of me. Are you happy? Liquid cooling. I know there's some liquid cooler manufacturers who call it water cooling. They're wrong. Just write to that manufacturer and say, is it distilled water exactly? It's just water? That's all it is water? See what they tell you. And then you can ask them why they call it water cooling when they answer your question and tell you it's not just water. All right, what else do we got here in the chat? I need chest x-rays if that sound is caused by your breathing. That sound caused by my breathing was caused by chest x-rays. Too many of them. Madi's contributed $5. Thank you, Madi. Carrie, does the 200R case have a filter in the front? I don't. It's got a filter on the bottom for the power supply. I don't believe it has a filter on the front. I can't remember. The front is not easily removable, especially if you have an optical drive installed. Sometimes you got to take the optical drive out or any other drives in order to get that front bezel off. But I know it doesn't have like an easily removable filter like the bottom does for the power supply. And most of the 200R builds that I do, they're basic workstations. And because they don't have discrete graphics, I'm not adding a graphics card. We're using onboard video. There's no reason for me to hook that front fan up. So in many of the builds, you'll see I do not hook the front fan up on a 200R. But if I'm adding a graphics card, I do, just to get airflow over that graphics card. Or if I was putting multiple drives, multiple hard disk drives in, which I barely even use one these days. I certainly aren't going to use 2 or 3. But if I were going to put 2 or 3, I would want air blowing over them because those mechanical drives can get hot. Or solid state drives, any kind of drive can get hot. So if it's just by itself, the air will dissipate around it naturally. But if there's drives stacked around it, then they just heat up each other. So to have airflow blowing over that helps keep the air moving and keep those temperatures a little better controlled. But I'm not sure on the 200R. I can't tell you for sure. I can't really remember. Can we see the task manager? That's on the next version of Windows, not this version. The version coming out in the spring should have that built into it. All right, we're good to restart this now. So here we go. Yeah, my task manager should look the same as yours. We should all be using the latest version of Windows 10. But for those beta testing the next version of Windows 10, which I am not doing here live, you will see that they've added the temperature sensor for GPUs. Yamato Reborn says, Carrie, I'm building a Ryzen 9 build today. I'm so excited and thanks for all your videos. Right on. Sure, it's going to be a great system. Are there any sound coming from the new build fans? No, the fans are not hooked up. This fan is not turned on and this fan is not turned on. The only fans turning right now potentially are the power supply fan and the CPU fan, and I'm standing right next to them. I can't even hear them. I would not know this computer was on if not for the video that I'm seeing and the lights that are on the motherboard. It is perfectly silent. And I'm sure it'll stay that way even after these fans are hooked up. And this case has foam pads on the panels which help keep it silent as well. This is a very quiet case. Would having a fan blowing over the CPU cooler help drop its temp? Or are you better off getting a new CPU cooler? You're always better off getting a new CPU cooler, always. You can keep adding fans all day long. There's only so much that's going to do. When you change the cooler, sky's the limit, depending on how good of a cooler you buy. Okay, we're going to go back and check for updates one more time, just make sure we got them all. You'll want to repeat this process until it says there's no more updates. Remember, we're using built-in video. This is the video built onto Intel CPU. And these built-in video chipsets that are on the, I'm going to find the word, stay with me. The built-in video chip on the CPU, they used to be a joke. They're not so much of a joke anymore. They are getting better and better with every generation. There may come a time where, well, we're already there, where if you're a certain type of game player, you don't need more of a graphics card than what's on an AMD or an Intel CPU stock. But that just depends if you're playing, you know, the latest AAA titles, or if you're a bit, typically it's somebody who's a bit older who still likes to play older games. And you'll find that those expensive cards 10 years ago are being spanked by built-in graphics on modern-day CPUs. So, yeah, something to keep in mind. Zerloth has contributed $2. Because I think you skipped my last donation message. Oh, did it get by me? Let's take a look. Let's take a look, see if I missed anybody here. Zerloth wants to know, would you consider the case you're working on now as a good replacement for your customers if the 200R ever went out of stock? No. The reason is most of my clients are business clients. And the reason for that is, if you start your own business as a computer technician, you have a choice. You can service residential clients, or you can service business clients, or you can service both. When I only serviced residential clients, I had over 450 clients in a year, 450 in 1 year, and was barely making ends meet. I was working harder, not smarter. When I got my first business client, because they have regular work, I was able to make more money from one business client than I could from 60 end users, residential clients. So if you do the math, if I got 5 or 6 business clients, that would be the same, or it would actually be better than the revenue generated from 450 home clients. And 450 home clients, they're all located in different places. You got to go here, you got to go there, you got to go here. 6 business clients, you only go to 6 places, right? Or maybe you take care of the boss and his home computer or something like that. So even if you have 12 places, but the other 6 you would only go to rarely, right? And that would be up to you if you wanted to do it. And then of course, when you get businesses, this funny thing happens where if they like you, if the employees like you, they'll ask you about their home computer and if you can help them with their home computer and make a little money on the side on top of that, because they trust you. They know you know what you're doing because you do the work at the office. Everybody's got a computer at home. Everybody's got problems with it. Maybe they even want to buy a new computer from you. So offices don't want glass panels. They don't want RGB lighting, and they don't want anything this big. They also, a lot of them still want DVD drives, which this doesn't handle. So what a home user needs versus what a business user needs are 2 entirely different things. And what's happened in the marketplace is it seems a lot of businesses just go to Dell, or they go to HP or Acer or Lenovo, whatever, right? I mean, I'm just naming a few off the top of my head, a few of the big ones. They're not necessarily having them built. So the case manufacturers go, well, we're not going to design cases for businesses because they're going to Dell or, anyway. So every case we sell will be designed for home users. So then home users who are not in business or don't work for a living, they don't understand that they're being manipulated. They don't understand that they're being gouged by adding a perceived value to a case that has unnecessary items like glass and lighting. These are just things that'll cause problems later. You'll see. Now, with that being said, because Corsair still makes the 200R, they're one of the few case manufacturers around. There's still a handful that are making cases for businesses who still choose to have custom computers built for them. Those are the smart businesses, in my opinion, because those computers last longer. I built 14 computers a few years ago for a dentist office in the videos here on YouTube. Those computers are still in use today. Not a single repair has ever been performed on any of them. And it's been 5-6 years, has it? No problems. They're still running Windows 7. In fact, I got to talk to them about that. The machines I built for them will still, they will run Windows 10 just fine. And they spent, I want to say it was $5,000 or $6,000 for all 14 computers. Now, when you consider Windows 7, a license for Windows 7 Pro, because they're on a domain server, they have to have Pro, was $140, and they needed 14 of those. So when I tell you they spent about $6,000 for 14 computers, they got a heck of a deal. They saved a lot of money, they got a very reliable computer, and they still use them to this day, and it's critical that those computers work. Imagine you have a dentist appointment, you have a root canal or some serious procedure plan, or even maybe just a cleaning and you've taken the day off of work to get it done, but it can't help you today because the computer's down in the operatory. Too bad. It's not too bad. The computers have to work or they lose business. and customers may go somewhere else. So why businesses will buy Dell is they don't know somebody they trust to build a machine. They don't know they can do it cheaper and build something better. It's just a level of they don't know. That's what it amounts to. And once they do know, they don't go back. The problem is, as long as the case manufacturers are going to continue to follow trends and fads and abandon the solid business marketplace that doesn't change, they're ultimately just chasing something they can never catch. And you know, the $200 is a solid design. It doesn't need to change. Whereas the RGB in glass will probably be an embarrassment to you 10 years from now, just like a lava lamp. A standard steel case that's just black and plain will always look good. It is timeless in its design. So we have different reasons for why we build computers. We build them for work or we build them for play. When you're building a computer for play, it's your money to spend on frivolous things. It's up to you, whatever makes you happy. When we're building for a business, we want to try and make sure everybody's equal, that no employees are going to be jealous or et cetera over other employees having a better machine. We don't want to have differences in the machine with regards to support. So customer calls and says, I'm having a problem, and I got to figure out which computer do they have. If they're all the same, support gets a lot easier. So there's a number of reasons why things are done differently on business. And because I make a lot more money from businesses than I do for residential, I really don't give residential a lot of weight of concern, because you're just going to work harder to make less money than you would for a business. For a business, you're under a lot more pressure. It's a lot more responsibility. And as such, the pay is a lot more and the work is more regular. So you're not always looking for your next job. They're coming to you. Hey, we need you here again. Now we got a new printer. We got an employee that left. We need them off, we need them removed from email. We need to make sure they're blocked from doing anything. Oh, we added a new employee. We need to make sure they have email. We have a person changing desks and we need to move everything to the other desk. We're expanding the office. We're moving the office. It goes on and on and on and on and on. And you hope you don't get the call that says, we got a virus. That's your job as the tech, to provide them with antivirus and to make sure they have off-site, up-to-date backups, so that if they are affected by ransomware or an employee clicks something they shouldn't have, that we can recover from that relatively painlessly and quickly because we're prepared for it. Residential clients don't typically want to pay you for anything other than to make their machine work. And then they will live with a machine that limps until the machine won't go anymore. And then they'll call you. And then that job will be 10 times harder and they'll expect to pay you the same. So for me, residential clients are a great way to get started. They're a great experience in customer service and seeing a variety of hardware that you just can't get any other way. And then when you're ready to make money and you're serious about, wanting to do this for real, you start handling businesses, and then you take on real accountability, real liability, and understand that if you fail in your job, if you're the guy or the gal that's responsible for the network infrastructure and data of a business, regardless of the size of the business, and a situation comes up where a backup needs to be restored, or some kind of security issue comes up and you are unable to fulfill what they have paid you for, that company could go out of business and that company could sue you for the value of their loss, which is whatever their annual revenue is, times however many years it takes to, if it's even possible, to bring the business back up again. That's never going to happen with the residential client. So it's all about liability, responsibility, and accountability that makes you more valuable. And again, the best experience with the residential, I've run into techs, self-proclaimed techs, that only have experience at one company, and so all they know is that company's policies and procedures, and they don't know enough to know that that's not universal. Each company has their own policies and procedures depending on their industry and their budget and management and responsibility of, how serious the management takes this network infrastructure. Some don't take it seriously. Those are not clients I want. that's just going to be a nightmare waiting to happen. And then they're going to blame me for it. So residential clients, like I say, typically they only call you when they need you, which is about maybe once a year, every 18 months. So you need a ton of them to make ends meet. And then how do you get them? It's a lot of marketing money. It's a lot of knocking on doors and phone calls and stuff. So they're very hard to acquire. Businesses are also hard to acquire, but once you've got one, it's a solid income as long as you do a good job and they like you. They have no reason to go anywhere else. And it's more regular work. You're not wondering, how am I going to pay the bills this month? All right, let's shut that off. So we're all updated there, and then we'll turn off camera 2. Ben Fitzpatrick says, I just started the A+ course in school. I'm starting the A+ course in school tomorrow. Thanks for being an awesome tech, my friend. Right on. A+ is easy. You have no problem with that. If you're familiar with computers, if you're comfortable around computers, and you've been watching my channel over a year, as Ben has, I'm sure you're going to find the A+. And it's got a couple weird questions, but for the most part, you're going to find it's pretty easy. And Madi's just contributed $10. Thank you, Madi. Thank you once again. Trudy Brooks contributed $10 and says, enjoy your broadcast. Thank you, Trudy. Can you use onboard GPU on a GTX 1080 at the same time? Yes, on any card, any graphics card. It's in the BIOS, whether or not you want to turn the onboard GPU on or off. And the BIOS will automatically handle it anyway. So, but if you want to free up the resources, for sure you would disable it in the BIOS. If you don't disable the onboard video in the BIOS, then it remains enabled, and you just have to plug it in to use it. Obviously, you have different performance depending on which GPU you're using, and then selecting which GPU for which task might get a little complicated, but something you'll have to get yourself familiar with to fully take advantage of that. Wild One says, I have several businesses keeping me on monthly fees to serve them first when things go wrong. Yes, we call that a retainer. And what the retainer does is it gives them typically the way I work it is it gives them a discounted rate because they're buying hours in bulk. And like any bulk purchase, there's a quantity discount. And it also means that when they call, they go right to the top of the priority list no matter what. The only issue is if you have two businesses that are on retainers call at the same time, then you've got to triage who's the worst one, but you've got to handle them both ASAP, and anything you're doing for regular clients has to wait if you want to keep those business clients, right? Do you want to keep the gun that's paying you all this money every month, or do you want to risk losing it for the one client who's called you for the first time, you've never worked with them before, they're a home user, they're demanding, I want it done quick, they can wait. Because if you lose them, who cares? There's a difference between losing a customer and losing a good customer. So focus on keeping and doing whatever you've got to do to keep those good customers and do everything you can for the rest of them. But if that's not good enough for the rest of them, let them leave. You'll both be happier in the long run. Zero Core says, I love when Carrie talks about the business side of being a tech. As a tech myself, it's nice to hear someone explaining what it's really like to be a working technician. Yes, it's very different being a working technician from being a YouTube content creator. They are not related at all. If you want to be a YouTube content creator, turn your webcam on. That's it. If you want to work in the business environment for tech, I hope you have errors and omissions insurance. I hope you understand marketing, billing, your rate. I hope you understand being able to resolve any customer issues, both technical and resolve or manage their expectations on the level that keeps them happy and keeps them paying. It's the barrier to entry being a working tech and maintaining that is much greater than the barrier of entry to create YouTube videos. Because you can create a YouTube video. All you need is a smartphone. And that's it. And you can keep doing that as much as you want. There's no barrier to entry, and there's nothing that will shut you down except if you're, making hate videos or offensive videos, pornographic videos, something that would get you kicked off YouTube. But if you're just making videos, just like I'm making them, you don't need any education or training or qualifications, nor do you have any accountability to anybody, nor do you have any responsibility to anybody, and nor are you worried about losing any money because you won't be making any. So keep that in mind when you watch a YouTube video. The only reason I'm doing this and you're not is because I turned my camera on and did it. It also just so happens that I work as a technician, and I got so sick and tired of this one-sided view from YouTube of just being a home user. And it scares me to think that people are deciding to become a computer tech based on what they're seeing entertainers do on YouTube with technology. Because you're going to be in for a world of shock if you don't realize right out of the gate how serious and how much pressure there is working as a technician in the corporate world. But then you'll also find you can make a lot more money too. So, it balances itself out. Jan Milhelov has contributed €5. He says, "Hey, Kerry, what do you think about the power supply called Mars Gaming MP260? I don't know what that is. I'm sorry, Jan. I've never heard of it. I generally stick with Corsair, EVGA, or Seasonic when it comes to power supplies. Now, that doesn't mean they're the only good ones. That just means those are ones I have experience with. I find value in the product. They have an acceptable warranty, and I'm putting my name behind it. When a customer buys a machine from me, they're not buying GIGABYTE or Corsair or EVGA or Be Quiet. They're buying Kerry Holzman. And they're relying on me, they're trusting me to select the right components that meets all of their budgetary needs, all of their expectations, and it will be reliable and perform to their level of expectation. So the reason I buy a part is different than the reason you might buy a part. And so you buy the part that you want to buy. And when customers pay me to make that decision for them, and they pay me to take accountability and responsibility for it if it breaks, then I make my recommendations based on my experience with those products. Because those product manufacturers have a long-standing history with me with quality, reliability, performance, and value for dollar, I continue to recommend them, and I have no need to look for anybody else until that changes, right? So why would I look at other manufacturers of power supplies? What's the point? I'm trying to solve a problem I don't have, or I'm just trying to be different. Being different is great when it makes you money, but being different just because you're bored and have nothing else better to do, I'm well past that. That might have been something I did when I was 20, but I can't afford that anymore. Life's moving too quickly, and I don't have a lot of time to tinker around because customers are waiting. And if customers wait too long, customers go to somebody else, and then you lose money. And ultimately, I think that's really what happened for me. Is I got into this because of gaming. I wasn't interested in computers. I was interested in gaming and making the game work. And we're talking long before the IBM PC or the IBM compatible. We're talking TRS-80 Model 1, Atari 400, Commodore 64, Commodore PET, if we go way back, Timex Sinclair X99. There's a history with me in computers that goes way, way back to the old 8-bit machines, so I could play games. Then you reach this balance where you're sort of in your 20s or 30s, and you're playing games and you're working, and you're playing games and you're working, but you're not making a lot of money. In fact, you're probably barely making ends meet. And if at some point you realize, if I work more, I can make more money, but in order to work more, I have less time for gaming, but then I won't be paying for the games, so that'll save me money, which adds to how much money I'm making. What ends up happening is for me anyway, less and less time to game, because I would rather spend that time making money and helping people. As long as people need help, I feel like I have a purpose. When I play a game in that moment, I feel like I have a purpose to win that game. But whether the game is won or lost makes no difference in the real world. If I'm having the best game I ever had and someone just comes along and unplugs the machine, I'm going to be really ticked off. But in the real world, it made no difference. The rent is still going to be due. The power bill is still going to be due. The garbage still has to go out. The laundry still has to get done. The dishes still have to get done. The floor still needs to be cleaned. The garbage cans still need to go out to the curb. The lawn still needs to be mowed. The repairs need to be done around the house. If you've got a leaky faucet or whatever, it's always something, right? Squeaky hinge needs to be oiled. Car has to have the oil changed. Or needs maintenance of some kind. I'm going to take it into the shop. Or I have to go grocery shopping. Suddenly, there's no time left to game. Or if there is, I don't want to do anything. I just want to vegetate and stare at the ceiling just to relax for a minute and put some music on and just listen and lose myself and find my zen so I can recenter myself to start it all again tomorrow. And so the older I get, the less and less time I have, or the less important it is for me to spend any time gaming, because I want to have an impact on the real world. And if there's people who I can help, I feel bad that I'm letting them wait so I can get one more level. And I'll probably lose the work. It's not a sustainable business model. Customers will go elsewhere. Sharon Idle has contributed £2 and says, please accept this for awesomenaciousness. Right on, Sharon. Thank you. Sharon is also a musician. You should definitely check out her website, especially if you like electronic dance music or EDM. It's all got a catchy beat. Thank you, Sharon. Post a link to your channel, Sharon, so people can hear your talent. Can you please rank your top 3 GPU partners for NVIDIA? Really just one. That's EVGA. But if I can't get it at EVGA, I would look at GIGABYTE or ASUS for an EVGA. I mean, an NVIDIA card. But I'm going to use EVGA 9 times out of 10 because of the warranty, and the support is in America. And their support doesn't seem to be script readers. They seem to actually be people who know what they're doing and don't need a script. And they don't talk with a foreign accent, which makes them easy to understand. And they're available 24/7, USA based. So I'm buying EVGA every chance I get, both power supplies and graphics cards. Not their motherboards. Motherboards, no. Not yet. EVGA's got a little ways to go yet, as far as I'm concerned, before I start recommending their boards. Not enough BIOS updates. They just feels like they release them and they abandon them. I don't like that. Quincy Joker says, I'm having issues with my Ryzen 7 1700, blue screen galore. Try turning XMP off, just run your RAM at stock speeds and see if that helps. Wild One has contributed $5 says, thanks, Carrie, you made my day on home versus business customers. Have a great day. Regards, Steve Wild. Well, thanks, Steve. Look, I'm just telling the truth. I'm just telling you how it is, right? I'm not trying to tell you what you want to hear. Just telling you and sharing with you my experience in business, because nobody was there to advise me, because there was no such thing as a PC repair business when I started. So I had to figure it all out. There were no examples to follow. There was no internet. There was no, well, I suppose there was an internet by the time I started doing my own business. But when I was working for companies as a professional tech, there was no internet. It was AOL, CompuServe, Prodigy, stuff like that. But even before that, back in my TRS-80 Model 1 days and Atari 400 days, it was bulletin board systems. So I've had to sort of invent what I needed to make it work. And that involved a lot of trial and error and a lot of stupid decision making through lack of knowledge and lack of experience. And it's my goal to just share that with you here. And they do that on numerous podcasts now, like Podnuts with Jeff Hallish. Check it out if you're interested in being a tech. Listen to the Mike Tech Show. Listen to Tech Vets with me and Mike Smith from the Mike Tech Show. Listen to Your Friendly Neighborhood Computer Guy with Matthew Rodella and the Computer Business Marketing Podcast. Check out the Tech Nibble website if you're self-employed and you're looking for advice on the business side of things. They have contracts and they have a whole business kit you can buy to help get you started. Although you may need to tweak it. You should plan on having to tweak it if you want to make sure you're legal for the area that you live in. But they're good templates to start with, so you're not starting with a blank page. And it's cheap, it's like $100. If you can't invest $100 in your own business, why should anybody else? You know what I mean? Like, why should they hire you? You won't even invest in yourself. So you get what you give. And that's not a guarantee that you're going to, be a big success. But it's putting you on the right path. And there's nothing that I can tell you that replaces your own ambition. If you're ambitious, you'll get it done. And if you're not, you won't. It's really no more complicated than that. People that are not ambitious have excuses. Well, there's too many. I live in a crowded urban city, and there's just too many competitors, so I can't stay in business. Well, I live in a rural area, and there's just nobody around, so I can't stay in business. If you work that hard on actually making your business work as you do and coming up with reasons why it's not, you'd be very successful. But some things there's no podcast is going to be able to fix. And that's attitude and ambition. And if you don't have them, there's not a video in the world that's going to give it to you permanently. You might get fired up watching a video, and then you go to bed and wake up the next morning and you're right back to where you were the day before. So there's one thing, to watch something motivating, but to keep that motivation, if you don't have it in you, you don't have it in you. And the only person who can put it in there is you. How do you do it? I don't know. How do you create desire? How do you make somebody want something? I don't know. I don't know you, so I don't know what drives you. You do. You know yourself better than anybody. So you're the only one who can answer that question. So let's get back to this. All right. BIOS has been installed. With the latest BIOS installed, and Windows 10 is now installed, we can continue on safely with our build, knowing that everything we've done up until this point works exactly as it's supposed to. So that means if I add the graphics card and the Wi-Fi card, and I have a problem, it's probably as a result of the graphics card or the Wi-Fi card, which is going to make my diagnostic and repair faster. But I'm not likely to have a problem because I know everything I did so far is working. And if I do this equally the right way, I should continue to have no problems. Lurchicus has contributed $5. His name is Dan Ria. And Dan says, Carrie, in your Atari days, did you ever use the Atari forums on CompuServe? I was one of the Atari sysops in the day. No, CompuServe wasn't, first of all, CompuServe cost money and I was a teenage kid, probably without a job. Yeah. And if I had a job, it was paying me $3.35 an hour before taxes. So paying for CompuServe was not a long-standing sustainable option. I had it for a little while. I would go to Atari bulletin board systems that were local to the Phoenix area. There was a great Atari-based website, Atari-based bulletin board system, or BBS, run by a guy named Lee Whiteside. And Lee was probably 20 years older than me, 15 or 20 years older than me. Like I was 15 and he was like 30. And he ran a bulletin board called Magrathea, which of course, those of you who are nerds know what that is. And Magrathea was an Atari-based bulletin board. Now there were a handful of others, but I didn't really get to know the owners and I didn't really feel like part of a community like I did with Magrathea. So Magrathea was a home base for me. And then the main bulletin board I logged into was called Showtronics, which was run by a computer building business, where the bulletin board got more popular than the business. And the business sold off the bulletin board to the sysop. And the sysop renamed it to the Rock Garden. And I continued using the Rock Garden for probably 10 years. Because even when the internet was out, very few people knew about it or were using it. So we just stayed to the bulletin board system. And then eventually, the internet caught up and surpassed with regards to the community. But it was a pretty tight-knit community back then. We used to have what we call GTs, or get-togethers, where you get to meet people face-to-face. There was some arguments, but not the level. There was no real trolling back in the BBS days. There was spamming, but not trolling. Sometimes two people didn't get along and they'd go at it, but not somebody just looking to stir the pot. Maybe once in a great while. But it usually didn't end well for them because they were going up against an entire community. They weren't just going against one person. Yeah, and there wasn't swatting events and things of that nature. So a more innocent time, I guess. People weren't as smart. I don't know. People were just nicer to each other, I think. Even when you were upset, you were still nicer. And it took more to get upset. Are you wearing green? I hate green. I'm going to make sure that the world knows that you're a green lover. We're the anti-green movement. We don't like things that are green. And we're going to put you down. Why? Because you like green. Duh. So, where was I? All right. The next thing we can do here would be either to install the graphics card or the Wi-Fi card. Now I'm going to save the Wi-Fi card for last. I also have the rest of the cabling to hook up. So I guess let's do that first. Let's get the rest of these front port umbilicals hooked up because they're pretty straightforward. Let me just unplug everything. Make sure that we unplug everything. Safety first. There's my Windows 10 flash drive. It's going to go back here for the next build. And we'll bring this around and see what we have here to hook up. It's an RGB lighting adapter if you want to add more RGB lights. This is our USB 3.0. It's a blue cable here. And here on the motherboard, we've got a spot for the USB 3.0 right here. And right below the second RAM slot, there's a USB 3.1 plug, real small. Pretty different looking. If you're not familiar with it, it's the new Type-C connector. And we can do both of those right now. So I'm going to start by taking the USB 3 header here. And I just want to make sure I get it untangled from the rest of these cables. Figure out the cleanest way I can run it so that it looks, so the cable management will be easier and it's going to look good. Remember, I got to bring it in through here, so we want to come in through this wiring grommet, which is just below the power cable. And I have to decide if I want to run this behind. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And then we'll run it right through there, like so. Bring this back around. And it only plugs in one direction. It's keyed. It has a notch that's got to line up, which is this way. And there's no clip or anything. It's a friction fit. You plug it in. You might hear it click. And give it a light tug. If you pull it too hard, it'll come off. It is just a friction fit, and then we can push some of that slack towards the back to keep our cabling looking as clean as possible there. Coming back around, remember I was talking about that USB 3.1, and that looks like this cable right here. It's kind of a funky looking cable here. Half the size of that USB 3.0, which is always welcome. And we can run that right through that same center grommet. Again, we want to make sure the cabling is nice and clean here. We don't want to interweave cables and have to pull it out later to do the cable management. So if we take care of that now, it'll be one less thing we have to take care of later. This is also a friction fit. And I do believe it only goes in one way, which is ironic because USB Type-C, you can plug in either way. So let's see, can we plug this in either way or does it have to go in? So it plugs in that way. Does it plug in this way? I think it plugs in either way. Not sure. I have to get a flashlight and take a look at it. Let's take a look. Yeah, I think that'll plug in either way. Just for some reason, I'm having a little trouble getting it aligned. Or maybe not. It just doesn't want to go in that way. Let's turn it this way. Well, I'm not sure. I think it'll plug in either way. Logically, it should, right? If this end can plug in either way, that end should plug in either way. I'll have to look into that. That's probably only the second time I've ever seen one. So hopefully that'll be a new standard, and I'll look back at this and think, boy, was I stupid. That's good. I don't want to look back at it and go, I used to be a lot smarter. I'd rather look back the other way around. All right. Now we've got the front port audio cable. That's this cable right here, and that's going to give us this connector right here. It says HD audio right on it, and that's going to give us access for these ports to work, which is your external microphone jack and headphone jack, which also exist on the back of the case, but they're hard to get to, right? So if you just want to plug headphones or a microphone in right up front, it's just, that's all this does. So we're going to take this cable and we're going to plug it into the motherboard. Now, typically, this connector needs to plug in somewhere in this lower left quadrant of the board. Now, on this board, I guess I got to get my flashlight again. And this will be detailed in your owner's manual, but if you look carefully at the connectors, you can also determine that there's also writing typically etched on the board below the connector that tells you what that connector is. So I'm looking down here for HD audio, and right here, it's this connector right here says F audio underneath it, or FP audio, front panel audio or front audio, and it is this black connector right here. Now, sometimes you can get away with sneaking the cable in like down below the board. Other times you need to bring it in through a wiring grommet and run it across. That's one that is a cable management pain because it's a difficult cable, generally, most of the time, it's a difficult cable to hide. It's one of those cables that's just in an awkward place. So I'm gonna try to bring this cable down the side back here and up above, right near the power supply. I want to try and get the cable to come out as close as I can to where it's got to be plugged into. But it looks like, is it going to fit? Yes, I can squeeze it through. Can you see that cable coming through? I'm moving it around. Now I'm going to have to adjust the back because I've got a little bit of cables crossing over that. It's going to make wire management difficult later, but I'll reroute it. But for right now, just to give you an example, I can hide that under the motherboard, which is great. So that's a great design on this case. This connector has a pin that's blocked off, and the where it plugs in, there's a pin that's missing. So you need the blocked off area of the plug itself to line up with the missing pin on the connector. And then you just push those two together. I sort of wiggle it left and right while I push towards the board until it bottoms out. And that's it. Again, there's no clip, and it will only go in one way. That's why that pin is blocked. If you flip it 180 degrees, there's a pin in the way and it can't go through because the hole is blocked. Forces you to flip it the other way or it ain't going on. I do use improper English on purpose. You'll hear me use words like ain't, and I do that so I'm trying to not come off like a professor. You know, I'm trying to come off as relatable, and I'm trying to sort of bring it back down to earth. And I do have to use some computer terms, but at the same time, it doesn't mean everything I say has to be grammatically correct, because I feel like doing so is a bit pompous, to be honest. So if you're wondering why I do that, I'm aware of it. It's done on purpose. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, do we have any other cables left? There's that same RGB, and this is power. Now, most cases are not going to have this. This is unique to this case. And what this SATA power connector is going to do is it's going to provide power to the fan header right here, which again is something most cases don't have. If you buy a case that has a built-in fan header, that's a $20 or $30 value. That's adding $20 or $30 to the price of your case. In this case, on the higher end, because it's got the RGB lighting that's being controlled through this, as well as the ability to control up to, looks like 6 fans and additional RGB lighting. And then there's another connector here for probably even more RGB lighting. So for all of that opportunity for expansion, even though we're talking about RGB lighting and fans, which in most computers don't make any difference at all. Once you have the minimal number of fans, adding any more fans is just adding noise and bringing in more dust. It's not necessarily cooling your machine down. And made a number of videos addressing this. If you don't believe me, if you're one of those people that thinks more fans is better, you need to try disconnecting some and monitor your temps, and you might find your temps don't budge. And now your power supply doesn't have to work as hard to generate the power for those fans. Those fan motors aren't generating heat because they're not running. You're not bringing in as much dust. Essentially, when it comes to fans, you want a fan in the front, on most cases, drawing air in through the bottom. And you want a fan on the back or on the top, not both, one or the other, taking air out. That's it. If you've got fans on the top and the back, try disconnecting the fans on the top or try disconnecting the fan on the back and monitor your temps. You're going to say, holy smokes, my temps didn't budge. My machine is quieter. I didn't need those other fans. It's just more parts to fail. Yes. Yeah. But don't take my word for it. Try it. One fan on the front, one fan on the back or the top. Fan on the front brings air in. Fan in the back or the top brings air out. That's it. So if you've got a liquid cooler up here, you don't need a rear fan. Don't need it. If you've got a bunch of hard drives up front, you probably want a fan to cool those down. You know, so if I had drives hooked up all through here, I'd want a couple of fans over wherever I have drives, just to keep air moving over those drives. But on a standard, everyday, ordinary build, like you see me build here, adding more fans is just wasting money, and it's inviting more opportunity for failure. That's been my experience. How about you? Have you tried it? What were your results? Sid, the Sims channel, has contributed $2. He says, I'm using Newegg to build a list for a new computer. Well, don't be afraid to ask Catherine Anner Hauserman to take a look at your list, and she'd be happy to do that and offer you some advice completely for free. You can find her both here in the chat room and on Facebook. All she asks for in return is a thank you. Please treat her respectfully. Stephen Bernstein. Hey, how are you, Stephen? All the parts for today's build are listed in the video notes below the video. That includes this little turntable, the case, the power supply, the motherboard, the RAM, the solid state, all that's detailed out in the video notes. Please check them out if you're curious. Just want to make sure I didn't miss any contributions here. I think I've got them all. Are you confident that a good quality 650 watt power supply will be plenty for that machine? Yes. Do you know why I'm confident? Is it because I'm smart? Nope. Tell you that right now. That ain't it. This is the graphics card we're going to be using. This is the EVGA RTX 2080 Ti. And on the back of the box, it says a few things. And right here it says minimum system requirements. And right there, what does that say? Bueller? Bueller? So, pretty confident. We're going to install that in just a minute. I want to get this SATA connector hooked up, this power connector, and I also need to get the power connectors out for the graphics card to have that ready. So in the bag that came with our Seasonic power supply, we have all of our spare cables in here. And I want to take out a SATA power cable and a PCIe power cable. So this is PCIe. You know how I know that? It's not because I'm smart. It's because it says, what does that say right there? That's how I know. Okay? And I also know what it looks like when I see one, but after you do it a few times, it's not a big deal. That's just memory. That's not intelligence. Now this is the SATA cable that we want for powering. You would use this if you were putting a DVD player in, which this case can't have, or a 2.5-inch solid state drive, or a hard disk drive, or anything else that would take a standard SATA connector. And the rest of these, we still have a number of cables left over. This is for stuff that the end user may want at some point in the future as they expand or change the machine to different hardware. The power supply manufacturer doesn't know how much stuff you're planning to hook up, so they give you all the cables that they deem reasonable, and then you can buy more cables if need be. If there's room on the back of the power supply for it, you can go to Amazon or the power supply manufacturer. You can even buy custom cables, you know, if you want them a certain color or a certain length, you can do all that. Money talks, so if you can afford it, you can have it. But that should be it. Again, I don't want to put a bag in them. Should we put the bag in the bag? Let's put this bag, let's put the Seasonic bag in the Seasonic bag. That way we won't lose our bag. In the bag, with the bag, we'll have the cables that came with the power supply in the box that was shipped in the box. Good. The dog hair over there. Now, when we test fire the machine, I think most of you are going to be shocked. That was a bad turn of phrase. Most of you are going to be surprised by how little power this machine actually uses. The CPU and the GPU combined probably will never draw more than 450 watts ever. I'm pretty sure we're going to have about a 200 watt overhead on this. When you start overclocking a system and you start pushing the voltages beyond where they're supposed to be, I guess you're not somebody who cares about the environment. But regardless of that, I mean, I'm not judging you or anything, but if you run it all at stock speeds, the 650 watt is way more than you're going to need, and I'm about to prove that. So it doesn't take a whole lot to find a naysayer on the internet. That's the laziest job on the planet, and people are come out of the womb that way. Seems like they didn't learn it. It's just lazy instinct to just prophesize failure, and it just turns my stomach. A lot of the people that tell you something can't be done have never done it themselves. They just go, well, I saw on the internet, I read this article. Who wrote the article? Probably somebody just like you. So when you see, one of the reasons I do these things online and live without the polishing, editing and stuff is you see for real what's happening. And so when somebody is a naysayer on the internet and you can say, well, where do you get that information? Where do you come from to say that that's not working? And they have nothing but theory and no real life experience. Never let somebody who's done nothing tell you how to do anything. And so we're going to prove that right now today. So here's the SATA power connector, and I'm going to plug that in down here. So I need a flashlight so I can see. And I do know that this front panel does come off. This front panel, but I'm not taking it off. But do know that this whole front panel comes off if you want to get at the power supply from this side. I just want to leave it there, but I just, for full disclosure, as I look at the case, I want you to be aware that that is a feature of this case that I am not utilizing on this video. But I'm sure you can find other videos where they do a more in-depth review of it. And so this can go right here, as a matter of fact. So we'll plug this cable in. I think. No, it can't go there. It's got to go back here. Oops. Can't see. this cable's in my way, so I gotta unplug this cable so I can see. There we go. Now I can plug that cable back in. And I can also plug in our video card cable. So this is the video card power cable right here. Now, with regards to the SATA cable, it doesn't matter which of these 4 connectors I use. And I want the SATA power adapter right here. And you know, what I could do, you know, when I think about cable management is I could sort of wire tie that up and jam it down in here. Nobody's ever going to see it, and just use the end connector for that reason. This only plugs in one direction. There's no way you can get it wrong. Now the fans and RGB lighting are hooked up. That's how easy that was. And then with regards to the video card power, same exact situation here. There's a connector. It says there's 2 connectors that say PCIe, those go to the video card. And this connector says PSU, that's the end that goes to the power supply. Wherever this fits on the back of the power supply, and it'll have numerous places, is the right place. So you just pick the one that is, you know, either easiest for you to reach or the one that's going to give you the best looking cable management. And that's all I do. I just try and pick, you know, like if I go into this power supply and I plug into the one that's easiest to reach, then I have to go back in here later to add another plug. This will be in my way. So if I move it over now, that means in the future, see, I'm thinking ahead. In the future, if myself or the end user want to add another power cable to it, they don't have to move anything. So that end's plugged in, and then this will go right to the graphics card. Now we can come up from the bottom through here for providing power, but for right now, I'm gonna, just because it's easier, I'm gonna come in through that wiring grommet right there. And then I will work on ultimately where I end up keeping this power cable. When the build is finished and tested and I know that everything works, the very last thing I do before I put the panels on is I clean up all the cabling. But there's no sense trying to do your cable management before you even know if you have to take the whole thing apart to fix it or to address any problems. And that's why you save it for last, unless you just like working a lot, redoing the same thing over and over, which I'm not a fan of. Now, somehow this box opens. And this is a brand new RTX 2080 Ti. This is the moment many of you have been waiting for. And I need to cut the tape on the box. This box has never, ever been opened before. And we'll cut the tape. Gee, I wonder if there's another box in this box. Oh, goody. It's got a little weight to it. They selling this by the pound? What do we got in here? Ooh, foam. Now this piece of foam measures about, oh, you didn't want a review of the foam? Tiny instructions. And look, I don't see any accessories. I don't see cables. I like that because most of that stuff, like, where's my poster that the 40-year-old man can stick over his bed? EVGA is not including all the junk anymore? That's crazy. Let me just make sure I'm not hallucinating. What? How am I going to fill my landfill? Now what do I do? EVGA is becoming more ecologically conscious. Thoughtful. All right. That's nice. I like that. I bought a video card. I got a video card. I didn't get a video card and a poster. and some adapter cables that suggest you're using the wrong power supply if you need them. Okay, anti-static bag. Tape, never been opened. First time, just opened it live on camera. Let's take the card out. That's what it looks like, fresh. Oh, that's fresh. Now let's see what that says right there. Remove protective film before use. What do you think that means? It means don't install it like this. This protective film. It's not really film, is it? Can't take pictures with it. Remove this annoying plastic before, yeah, something like that would be more accurate. But this is, oh, that's interesting. There's like a hard piece of plastic. And then there's this saran wrap. I guess this is what keeps it fresh. You notice that see-through? Probably because it's RGB, would be my guess. I mean, how is she going to see the lights? So I'm thinking that's RGB. There's two 8-pin connectors. That's the maximum a video card can have. You know this sucker is going to want a lot of power when you see those two connectors. We've got a back plate on here, which is a nice feature. So when you handle this, it's always great to handle it by the sides like you see me handle it. You don't have to worry about touching anything on the back because it's all protected. And then we've got a protective cover here on the bottom, which we can remove. And now we can plug that in. I always use and recommend that you follow using the very topmost slot. That is traditionally the fastest slot on your motherboard. Universally speaking, there are exceptions, but that right there is always where you want to install your card unless you have, for example, an inverse motherboard, in which case it would be the bottom slot. If we turn the motherboard 180 degrees. So if you're following along with me, this is how you learn. And if you already know, please don't be that person that says, well, not on mine. So let me grab my newly charged Milwaukee M4 cordless driver. The link to this is in the video notes below the video. You'll see I should have 4 lights on there now. Ah, yes, all 4 lights light up. Yep. And I have to figure out where this card's gonna go. So when I look at where this is gonna align, there is a tiny slot at the top. So we are not gonna take out that first slot cover. We're gonna go to the second and third one and take out these thumb screws. There's one. And there's the other one. Now these go into the motherboard box and the customer gets them in case at some point they change the video card, and who knows, maybe video cards get really powerful and really tiny and they need to cover one of those up, or something changes and they don't even want a discrete graphics and they're going to use, you know, maybe the card dies, they can't afford a new one, it's 5 or 6 years from now, whatever, it's out of warranty. They're like, I don't even use this machine for gaming, or I'm going to give it to somebody who's not using it for gaming. And so if we pull the video card out and use the onboard video, then they have a working machine. But I don't want to give it to them with holes in the back, and we can put these back on. Winston Anglu just contributed $2. Thank you, Winston. Now, before I put the graphics card in, there is, this connector here is the same as the one above it, but I'm showing you this one because it's closer to your view. I want to make sure that that little plastic retention lever is open on the top slot, which is where I'm going to go. Turn the card. Oh, there's another cover right here. I just realized. Take that cover off of there. That's a weird thing because there's no purpose for that. There's no purpose to put a cover on this piece because there's no electronics. There's nothing to protect here. So that's just EVGA still insisting on adding to the landfill. I thought we were over this, but apparently we're not quite there yet. And they have another cover, but this one is well deserved. That's for a bridging connector if you wanted to put 2 of these cards or more together and have them work like an RAID array for a video card. Think about that. So we're gonna just take this and line it up with the slot. Make sure that the groove in the card aligns with the notch in the connector. Take your time. Hold the card just the way you see me holding this one. We're going to align it and make sure that everything aligns properly before we add any pressure and try and seat the card. So I've just now rested the card very gently into the slot, but I've not put any pressure on it. When I push the card in now, I should hear that retention lever lock. And it did. Now, the card can wobble around in there. It's heavy. So it's important we put these screws back to secure the card so it won't move around. Here we go. I want to remind you, this screwdriver has a clutch on it, and the clutch is set to 3 right up here. See this clutch? There it's set to 8, there it's set to 11, and there it's set to 3. By setting it to 3, when the screwdriver hits a certain torque, in this case 3, it turns itself off. Other cheaper drivers will make a grinding sound, and they won't turn the spindle anymore, and it sounds horrific. It sounds like you're stripping screws when in fact it's just the clutch mechanism in the driver. But this is an auto off clutch, so when I hit that torque setting, it turns off. And it's not necessary on building a computer. Torque settings aren't necessary, but you don't want to over tighten. And so by doing that, it makes my OCD happy knowing that the motherboard screws, any screws that I use, are all torqued to the exact same spec. So I know they're not too loose, they're not too tight, and they're all equal. It's not important though. You can turn them all differently by hand. As long as they're securing whatever you're tightening, you've accomplished that goal. Now we can take the power connector that we just hooked up for the graphics card. And for this card, it looks like we're gonna have to put these with the clip facing down. So I will go one here and one here. And they do have a little extra 2-pin connector, which adapts them from being a 6-pin to an 8-pin. And so since this graphics card wants 2 8-pin connectors, we will do the same for both. And it doesn't matter which plug goes into which socket. Again, think of your cable management. Think about what's going to look the cleanest, and that's how you decide. Depending on what power supply you have, depending on which video card you have, the length of your cable and how it's designed, your output end result may be different than what you see me working on here on video, unless you're using the exact same components, which is unlikely. The procedure is the same regardless of who makes your power supply, your case, or your graphics card, or how much your graphics card is worth. Some graphics cards don't require any power at all. Those are typically not used for gaming though. Now, when we turn the machine on to test it, it's important that we remember when it comes time to plugging the video card in, we can theoretically still plug the graphics card into the motherboard if we're not thinking, and then wonder why our graphics performance is so bad. So now, instead of plugging in the graphics card up here, or the monitor, we're going to plug it in here instead, into the graphics card. So this is our 2080 Ti graphics card. We're going to plug it in just like that. Now I can go ahead and give the system power. So where's my power cable? Right here. And I can put these 2 connectors in the motherboard box. Not connectors, but covers. They can go in the motherboard box. I shouldn't need this for a little bit, so I'll put the screwdriver, just get it out of my way so I have some room to work here. Now, when I turn this machine on, I should see the front and rear fans turn. I should see the RGB lighting light up. And then we'll run some benchmarks, and we'll see how it does on Prime 95 with this cooler. And we'll see how it does in the Heaven benchmark with this graphics card. We'll have to grab the latest NVIDIA driver. And then we'll also monitor the power consumption from the kilowatt meter that you guys can't see over plugged into the side of the island there. And we'll see how much power consumption it's actually drawing. Now I will tell you, if I'm wrong and this thing's drawing over 600 watts of power, then I'm going to change that power supply. I'm not going to send it to the customer like that. I suspect it's not going to draw much more than 400 watts or 450. I think we're going to have 200 watts of overhead when the machine is pushed to its maximum in all the testing we do. I could be wrong. So rather than make all these absolute statements that people like to do on the internet with no experience and just from reading articles and watching YouTube videos, they're experts, we're going to actually see what the reality is on a live video right now that's completely indisputable. Although I'm sure there'll be people that try to dispute it. Okay, there we go. We're going to turn it on. Fans turning, RGB's lighting up on the graphics card. Let me click over to second camera input. There it is. And hopefully we'll get a signal. You can see the RGB lighting on the front of the case is lit up. And I have a little button up here with a light on it. What happens when I press it? Oh, it changes color. Get it to match. Let's see if I can get a dark blue. Right there. Now it matches the EVGA card color. Although I think there's EVGA software to control that RGB lighting. I still have to look into that. Is there a way to turn it off entirely? Do I just hold the button in maybe? Yes. And so now if you want to sleep, this thing is in your bedroom. Cool. How do I turn it back on? Just hold it back down? Yep. Awesome. I like it. I like it a lot. And then you got your fan controller where you can control your fan speeds 1, 2, 3 in auto. I would just leave it on auto. Oh, I never plugged the header. So there's a header, a fan header for the fan controller that can plug into any fan header on the motherboard to let the BIOS control it. I forgot to do that, but we'll have to deal with that right now. Notice these two fans, this one here and this one back here, spinning in the same direction. They're both drawing air in and pushing it out the back of the case. So this fan is pushing air into that fan, which is pushing it out the rear. That's why adding a fan to the top is of no benefit to us at all. Software. Let's see. Go for my utilities flash drive. We'll plug that in, which I think has the latest version of NVIDIA's drivers on there. Oh, you know what? It's probably for GTX cards and not RTX cards. I'll probably have to download it. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Let's just see what happens. I don't know if it's the same driver. I don't think it's the same driver. You know how I can tell? I'm going to try the GTX driver and see if it works on the RTX card. Is that a 6-inch bit that you use? Yes, and that's again in the video notes with the, it'll say, there's a link that says, here's everything you see me use on video. It's an Amazon store that has about 100 products in it, including those 6-inch number 1 and number 2 Phillips. Most of the time I'm using the number 2 Phillips. The number 1 Phillips is a finer screwdriver used for much smaller screws. And in general, when they're that small, I don't like to use an electric driver on them. Sometimes I do. So every once in a while, I'll pull out the smaller, finer number 1 Phillips 6-inch extension, but pretty rarely. Most of the time, if it's a laptop, that'll be when you'd see it. Okay, let's see. Let me go. Looking at my software utilities. Am I using the wrong mouse? Okay. What happens if I try to install the GTX driver on an RTX card? Because I'm thinking it's the same driver, even though when you go to the website, NVIDIA's website, they want to know exactly what cards you have before they offer you a driver. I think that's more for data collection. I think most of the drivers are the same. But if the driver comes up and says you don't have a compatible video card, I'll go to the NVIDIA website and download it. Not going to cause any harm. And I could research the internet to see if people say it's the same, but then how would I know if what they're telling me is true or not? I want proof. I don't care what anybody says. I want proof. If you don't have proof, then what you say doesn't matter. Especially on the internet, where anybody can say anything. Oh, we want Crystal Disk Mark Portable. We can measure the hard drive performance. I'm very curious about that. And we're going to want Oh, the Samsung drivers, right? Samsung drivers are in here somewhere. And we'll take that, put it over here. PC testing, so we'll just grab all of it and put it over there. Because it's a fast flash drive. Did I mention how fast my flash drive is? This is the old VLC, 3071. New VLC is 308. So I'll have to update that. I think everything else is current. Carries Windows 10 optimizers, a little piece of software I run on all my client computers. It just optimizes the way I like Windows 10 to be configured. And then within the PC testing software, we want the Heaven benchmark. I don't need this. Oh, there goes our driver. That's good. Don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need this. I don't need this. We'll keep everything else and empty the recycle bin. And I'm doing all that while the video driver's installing at the same time. Close that. Now let's go to the Samsung Magician software and let's install that. And we'll make sure that our Samsung 970 EVO Plus has the latest firmware and the Samsung driver installed for the best performance. Are you a resident of a European country? No. Next. Accept the license agreement. Click next, 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 next. Install. Done. Now that's going to analyze to see if we have any compatible Samsung drives. Now when you see that the drive is not supported, there could be a reason that is because either because the NVMe driver is Microsoft, or because the Intel rapid storage technology is enabled in the BIOS, or the software doesn't support the drive. I think the software supports the 970 EVO Plus. I would have to check the BIOS to make sure the Intel RST, or rapid storage technology, is disabled. In the meantime, it does say we're using the Microsoft NVMe driver. I want the Samsung driver, which is all downloadable from Samsung's website. And this is it right here. And after we install this, which just takes a moment, it's going to want to reboot for that driver to take over. You cannot change a tire on a moving car. You've got to stop the car. So for us to drive on these tires, we got to reboot. So that'll just take a minute. Let's see how fast this thing reboots. Should be pretty quick. Here we go. Not shabby. Let's go down here. Well, it hasn't loaded yet. I'm waiting for the Samsung Magician software to start up. I don't have the Ethernet plugged in, so it can't check for any firmware. I just realized that. Let me plug my Ethernet connector in and get us online so it can check. I also don't need this flash drive installed anymore, so I can take that out. Plug this in right here and give that a second to obtain an IP address from the router. There we go. And now let's bring up the Samsung Magician software. If I use the correct mouse. There it is. So this whole thing, drive is not supported. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Here we've got the interface is PCIe generation 3 times 4 is the speed. That is also referred to, in this case, NVMe. Now I'm running a driver that's actually newer than what NVIDIA is telling me. NVIDIA wants me to install their WHQL driver, which is one version behind this one. So I'm going to ignore this. This is pretty unusual that that happens. The security thing has a little exclamation point. If I click on that, I can just dismiss that, and that gets rid of it. Doesn't just bothers my OCD. It doesn't really change anything that matters. And then let's see. Let's look in the BIOS. Let me restart and go into the BIOS. And let's see if the Intel Rapid Storage Technology driver is installed, or enabled, I mean. I'm going to just hit delete over and over and over again right now to enter the BIOS. I want to load the classic version, which is F2, and I want to go to, I think it's peripherals. Is it NVMe configuration? No. What's in here somewhere? SATA and RST, right? Rapid Storage Technology, RST. SATA controllers enabled. I don't see where Intel RST is. It's in, oh, okay. It's probably under SATA mode selection. Yeah, so Intel RST is not the problem, so that's fine. We're going to leave that in EHCI. We're not using SATA anyway for this build. We're using NVMe, so these settings in theory, shouldn't be affected. And what else can I look for in here? We could turn XMP on if we want to, the extreme memory profile. We can turn fast boot on if we want. Easy RAID should be off. If you want the LEDs in the system power on state on or off, you can set that. LEDs in sleep or hibernation, turn them on or off because that drives people crazy. Intel's platform trust technology, software guard extensions, trusted computing. I don't really use any of that. Everything else here looks okay. We can turn off the internal graphics. Right now it's on auto. I can disable that, and that frees up the resources if the customer's not using it. Wake on LAN I will disable so that people don't get if they leave it plugged in and the system turns itself on, they're trying to figure out what's wrong. And it may be that, something's triggering it on the, through the Ethernet cable, so we disable that. Most customers don't use that. That's something a tech typically uses. And a tech wouldn't need it explained to them what it does, so it shouldn't be anything you need to worry about. So we're going to save and exit this, and we're going to go back in. I don't think I made any changes with regards to the Samsung software locating the drive. So now I just want to quickly do a Google search and make sure that the software is supposed to work with the Samsung 970, which I assume it is, and then we can figure out why it's not working once we verify that it's supposed to. I'm assuming it does. And I've seen this question asked a number of times before. Why does the Samsung software not recognize my drive? In some cases, your drive may not be supported. And in other cases, you could have the Intel Rapid Storage Technology feature turned on in your BIOS. And in other cases, I don't know. We'll have to see what the result is here. So even though I don't recall changing anything that should have made a difference, you can see that it tells us that we have an old version of firmware installed. Now, I notice, so I've been watching this full screen. You guys are seeing it in the corner. I will make this big for you so you can see this. Let's see, how am I going to do that? Full screen. Here we go. So what you need to do, and you need the Samsung Magician software to do this, you always want to run the latest firmware on your solid state drive. And a lot of manufacturers don't offer firmware updates. Like I've never seen one. Like with Intel, you have to download, the firmware is included in the drive monitoring software. So when you update your drive monitoring software to the new version, that's the only way you'll know if there's a new firmware version. It's attached to the version. It's really stupid. I don't like how they do that. Samsung, on the other hand, They maintain different software magician versions, but they go online regardless to check your firmware version. It's not part of the magician software. All you have to do to update the firmware on a solid-state drive is hit the update button. Well, let me rephrase. All you have to do to update the firmware on a Samsung solid-state drive is use the Samsung Magician software. And that's why this software right here is why Samsung drives cost more and are worth more than other solid-state drives. This software gives us all kinds of bells, whistles, and features for optimizing and tuning the drive and keeping it up to date that other manufacturers just don't come close to. SanDisk has their utility, and Western Digital has theirs, and Intel has theirs, and they're all clunky. ADATA's is not very good, and they don't seem to release any updates anyway. But they're also a very bargained, budget-oriented drive. This drive, right now that we're using, is the most expensive 2 terabyte SSD NVMe drive on the market. There's not one that's more money than this for consumers. As a result, you get a lot of bells, whistles, and features you just don't get on a budget drive. And one of those is how easy it is to know that your firmware is out of date. It brings it right to your attention, whether you like it or not. And to update it, you just hit the update button. It says, are you sure? You should back up your data. I've never, ever seen data loss because of this. But they got to tell you, they have to, right? So we get the boilerplate nonsense out of the way and click yes. And here it goes. Updating, it's downloading the update, it's applying it. And once again, when it's done, we have to restart the computer. We have to. Because when the update is done, it looks like a whole different model of solid-state drive to Windows. And it's not enough to reboot, you actually have to shut the whole machine down. So we're going to shut the whole machine down, wait for it to power off, which it just did. Now I'm going to turn it back on, and when it comes on, it's going to detect a brand new solid-state drive has been installed, because it's looking at the firmware to determine the make and model of your drive. Because the firmware changed, in theory, logically, the model of the drive is now changed because the firmware is part of the model of the drive. Now, with the latest firmware installed, having the latest video card driver installed, we can now begin to do some testing. First thing I want to test is the performance of this solid-state drive. So for that, I like to use a utility called Crystal Disk Mark, which is free, and I always use the portable version of it. I have it right here, and I run Disk Mark 64. I'm going to close this window so it doesn't get in our way, so we can watch these numbers. Bear in mind that there is a Pro version. There's a Samsung 970 Pro, which is considered the pinnacle, the best of the best. There's the Samsung 970 EVO, which is considered great for consumers. And then there's the 970 EVO Plus, which in many cases outperforms the Pro. Now, the way that this drive is connected with PCIe generation 3x4 means the fastest attainable speed possible through the interface. If you could flood the interface with data, you could go about 3,600 megabytes per second. That's your maximum. So if you put multiple drives in a RAID 0, you can't go faster than that. So if a single drive hits that speed, there's no benefit in a RAID 0. In fact, all it'll do is add latency and slow your drives down. That's how fast technology evolves. So what once universally accepted as a performance boost by putting 2 drives in a striped RAID 0 array is actually a hindrance in the case of many high-end NVMe drives using Gen 3 PCIe. Watch. Place your bets. How fast do you think this drive will go? Do you think it will hit 3,600? Will it go faster than 3,600? What do you think? What I'm talking about is the sequential read speeds and write speeds. So I'm going to predict a read speed of around 35 and change, 3,500 and change. We'll say 3,550. And I'm going to guess a write speed of around 2,900 or 3,000. But I don't know. I've never done this test before. On this drive, your guess is as good as mine. I've just started the test, and you'll see right up here, it says sequential read. It's going to do 5 of them. See, it says 1 of 5 right up here. Ooh. Look at me on those numbers, 3558.1, 0.8. Notice it's going through 5 different tests up here, and it'll average out the best of 5. right? Or not average out. I think it'll give us the highest number of the 5 tests. Looks like, yeah, maybe it is an average, because I think we were, I don't know. 3569.1. It's pretty good. Now, these other tests will also be impressive, but I don't really pay much attention to these. It's going to do all the read tests first, doing 5 of each one. Then it's going to come over here to the, oh my gosh, look at that number. Then it's going to come over here onto the writing side, and we're going to do the same tests again, and we're going to compare read speed to write speed. Now, while we do the test, I'm just going to take a look at the power meter. Right now, we are drawing 100 watts, 82 watts, 41 watts. We are barely drawing any power at all. 70 watts of power is all this thing is sipping. So we have 650, we're only using 70. Think of it like horsepower on a car. You got a 650 horsepower car, but you're just not slamming the pedal down to the floor, and you're only using 70 horsepower on average. Doesn't hurt anything, except maybe your insurance rates and cost of repair. 39 watts of power, 41, 57. This thing is just barely using any power at all right now. And that's powered through that graphics card using that 9900K CPU. Now let's take a look at what these write speeds are going to be. I was guessing right around, what, 2900, 3000, somewhere in there. Let's see how close I get to my guess. I really don't know. I really don't know. I know what's possible. And from experience, this is where I'm drawing numbers from. And not from experience with this drive, but drives in general and knowing what the technology is capable of. But I honestly don't really know what's going to happen here. Wow. Okay. That's really good. That's really, really, really good. So if you were to take another one of these drives, plug it in and put it in RAID 0, it would just be like eating poison. Yeah, it'll fill you up. You know, it'll fill your belly. But you're going to regret it later. So this drive all on its own is your RAID array. It really is. That is smoking fast. That's incredible. Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that outperforms the Pro version of the drive. Now, that's a $500 solid state drive. Well, 400 and change, maybe 450. It's a very expensive, oh my gosh, look at those numbers. Holy smokes. It's pretty unusual to see write speeds exceed the read speeds on a solid state drive. And that's far exceeded them on that test. Wow. And it's still going. How you like them apples? Apple. So you get what you pay for. I'm going to keep saying it. You guys keep looking for bargains, you get what you pay for. And that's not to say that there's not good deals to be had when there are sales, but usually the sales are only saving you $15 or $20 on an expensive item. Which, you know, it does add up, don't get me wrong. But that is about as good as it gets for August 2019. So if you're watching this video in 2024, you might go, well, what's the big deal on those numbers? I'm running Gen 6 PCIe at 10,000 megabytes a second. Well, we ain't there yet. You're in the future from where we are right now. So keep in mind when you watch YouTube videos, watch the date that the YouTube video was published before you get outraged. Then you can get outraged. I don't want to interfere with your rage. Bordura Catalan says it's $450 for this drive on Newegg. I think that's what we paid for it. I think it was $450. But bear in mind, you can get an Intel 660p 2 terabyte solid state NVMe drive for $185 on sale, but these numbers will be about 50%. So it's about 50% of the price, and it's about 50% of the performance. I wonder if those two things could be related. So if you're performance oriented, you're going to spend more money. Bottom line. Now, that's not to say that that's the most important thing. It isn't. What's important is that your expectations are met. And if your expectations are to have the best, you can expect to pay the most. If your expectations are to make the best out of, middle range value for the dollar, so be it. Yeah, there's no right or wrong here. But you should have the right expectations. Don't think that you're going to compete with this at half the price. You're not gonna. Again, it doesn't make you a better gamer anyway. So even your rig at half the price could result in the exact same gaming performance when it comes to real life gaming, real life, pretend real life. When you're playing against somebody online, your rig really doesn't play a big role. How many DPI your mouse does. Really, I mean, that's great for at home by yourself. But if you can't sit at somebody else's computer and still play the game well, if you've got to have your keyboard or your mouse or your machine for you to be a good gamer, you're not a very good gamer. It's like saying, I'm a really good car driver as long as I'm in my car. Well, then no, you're not. Not by my definition of it. You should be able to pick up any camera and be a good photographer. You should be able to, if you consider yourself to be a photographer, you should be able to use any pots or pans if you think you're a good cook. That shouldn't matter. Ryan Farmers contributed £5. He says, great vid as always, Carrie. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. All right, let's get back to some more testing. So let me go back full screen on this. There it is. And let's close this window. What do we do? Oh, I want to run the optimizer. Let me run the optimizer before I do anything else. Now, this automatically checks all the right boxes. It'll take it a minute. You will see a lot of access denied stuff in here. That's because it's turning indexing off on files that are in use. And it doesn't permit that. It's normal. It's just part of the disabling the indexing service. And then for that to take effect, we need to restart. And this computer is dead quiet. We've got the front and rear case fans turning, the CPU fan is turning, the power supply fan might be turning, I don't know. And the video card fans are both turning right now, although they might shut off because we're not pushing the card at all right now. So, but on boot up, they spin up. Let me check, did they shut off? Yeah, they turned off because you're just at the desktop. It doesn't require much. Rick Hubbard has contributed £3. YouTube takes 30% of all contributions. So he says, as usual, 1 for YouTube and 2 for Carrie. Thank you for that. Now, back to testing. Let's go to, well, for me, I need to go to a full screen here so I can see. It's already full screen for you. Let's go to the PC testing software folder. Let's bring up the hardware monitor and let's see what temps we're running right now, just under idle conditions. What are we sitting at? We're sitting at, right now, the 30°C range. So that you can see that Mugen 5 is keeping this CPU very cool. Right here are our, sorry, I gotta use the right mouse. Right here, am I not using it? What am I doing? Okay, let me get this mouse out of the way. These are our current temperatures on all these cores. This is an 8-core chip with the full package temperature being the top number here. This is the minimum, the coolest it has run, and this is the hottest or the maximum it has hit, well, since we just booted it. Not in the history, just now since this boot. So I'm gonna go back over to this window. We're gonna run Prime 95, which is right here. I always run version 26.6. That the newer versions of Prime 95 put an unrealistic workload on the chip, which will probably cause it to overheat and have you panic. So we're gonna run 26.6, in this case it's build 3, and just go with the defaults and hit OK. And then we can watch our temps over here. And I'm gonna grab my timer so we can let this run for 15 full minutes, or if it hits or exceeds 85 degrees, if it exceeds, not hits, if it exceeds 85 degrees centigrade, I'm gonna stop the test early. Okay, so I started this timer just a little bit late. And we'll keep an eye on that. And I think I can just take my main camera. Let's put it over here. And I'll put me. How about if I put myself over here? All right, so we'll keep an eye on this information. Watch those maximum temps. So if it exceeds or it starts getting into the 80s, guys, let me know. And in the meantime, I will do my best to answer any questions you've got in the chat room right now, because we got to wait. Timer is running. Like I said, I started it a little bit late, so we'll keep an eye on that and monitor as it goes along. For a home build, do you ever need to run this test? I run the test so it doesn't matter if it's a home build or a business build. I don't build computers differently for consumers than I do for businesses. They all have to pass the same test. It would be like saying, should you test drive this car, even though I'm going to be using it as Uber, versus I only go out once a week to go to the grocery store. It's the same procedure regardless of how it's used. Ideally, if it will withstand this abuse that I'm throwing at it now, then it'll withstand anything any business or home user can do, as long as they're not overclocking it and pushing it beyond the way it was engineered to run. Carrie, in your builds, are the graphics card fans pulling hot air from the heat sink from the CPU? No, the fans on the graphics card are down here at the bottom. They're here. They're drawing air in and they're blowing air out. You see right back here, there's little vents. And so these fans are actually blowing air into the video card and out through the back of the case. And if it's working really hard, you'll be able to feel the air coming out the back of the graphics card. And when you blow the dust out of them, you want to make sure you blow the dust through the graphics card and clear this heatsink area here in these fans. So it's this CPU fan up here is well above the airflow, which is all taking place down in here. And this airflow is drawing air in from this area. So it's nice and cool. What about leaving it on overnight? Leaving it on overnight doesn't do anything. The system goes into an idle mode. And in fact, I recommend everybody just leave your computers on. It's not a security risk. You're behind a router. It's nothing to do with time. The only thing that tests the system isn't leaving it on. It's pushing it. It's using it. Leaving it sit at a desktop is not using it. It's like letting your car idle. We got 946 people watching. Welcome in, everybody. And right now, testing the RTX 2080 Ti. We're testing the whole system in components. Right now, we're testing the 9900K CPU from Intel with the Mugen 5 cooler, a $48 cooler. Right now, from the wall, we are drawing 161 watts from the wall. The question was, is a 650 watt power supply enough? That's the most wattage we've drawn from testing so far. Now, when we do the Heaven benchmark and the graphics testing, I expect to see numbers twice as big, maybe, like I said, up to 450 watts. I don't think we'll see anything beyond that, but I could be wrong. Carrie, do you do a video on the software you use for testing the new builds? Yes, all that's done in the quick tips video section. Those are the short videos. And keep in mind the software is always updating. And so I can't keep up making a new video every time they update the software. So you will have to use some common sense and realize the interfaces and the versions do change over time. And there's not enough time for me to update my video every single time they decide they want to do that. They could update the benchmark software or the Prime 95. They could update that 6 times in a week. Am I going to make a video 6 times in a week? No. Then they may not update it again for 6 months. I have no idea what they're going to do. So I make the video once, and it's up to you to sort of put the differences together with regards to, it's the same software doing the same function, but sometimes they add bells or whistles or change the way it looks, but it's inherently still the same. And all those videos are on the Quick Tips channel. They're also here on this channel. All you have to do is look for them. They are there for you. That's why they are there. Winston from Canada has contributed to $2 Canadian. Thank you. Are you going to overclock this computer? I do not support overclocking a computer. If we were going to overclock it, I would recommend a liquid cooler for that. We're running 5 minutes and 30 seconds on the timer. And so far, what have we hit here on the temperatures? I can't really see it. $74 looks like the peak we've hit so far, but we got a little ways to go. The longer we let it run, and again, this is a very unrealistic torture test. It's highly unlikely any end user would push all 8 cores at 100% for 15 full minutes. That'd be like testing a car by saying, I'm going to put my foot to the floor going up a hill for 15 minutes. There's no hill that big that I'm aware of that you can run a car for 15 minutes with your foot completely down on the floor. Even a weak car, even a car that has 60 horsepower, will probably make it to the top of that hill long before 15 minutes is up. So it's not a realistic test. And the reason it's not a realistic test is I want to push the system harder than the customer's ever going to push it. And if it can live through that with no problem, if it can breeze through that, then I am confident turning it over to the customer saying, enjoy, and it's going to be just fine. Now, there are customers who can push a system harder than that, but those are typically not people who are asking me to build a system for them. Those are very technical people who are very technically minded, and they know so much about computers and so much about their needs. The last thing they want is advice from me. And what would I know about them and their needs? So if anybody's disagreeing with the statement, keep in mind that that's their mentality. It doesn't fit the vast majority of computer owners, which is who my videos are made for. They're not made for customizing my videos to those individuals because they don't represent the needs or the usage patterns of the average computer user. And they know that. So they're just trying to argue or they're trying to stand out as though they're better than you. Just ignore those people. Don't worry about them. Worry about you. And so that process is the logic I use to ensure that, well, not to ensure, but to make it likely that my customers are going to have a machine that isn't going to fail on them through any tasks that they perform. And they're going to be very happy with their purchase. And it will hopefully exceed their expectations, not just meet them, but exceed them. And it's pretty commonplace where customers go, wow, I can't believe how quiet the machine is. I can't believe how fast the machine is. In fact, Midi, who ordered a computer from me before, was so impressed with it, he ordered a second one. That's the best compliment. You know, people can say thank you, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, I love it. But when you put your money where your mouth is and you say, I want another one, I want another one, I told my friends about you, they're ordering from you, that's good for business, and it tells me I'm on the right track, that I'm keeping my customers happy. And that's really important to me, obviously, because I need to eat. And I need to eat again tomorrow, and I'll need to eat again the day after that. So ripping people off or doing a job where there's no pride in it, I'm going to go hungry. It might get fed today, but I don't know how I'm going to eat next week if I have that attitude. So everybody gets the same level of quality regardless of what their budget is or how the computer is going to be used. The computers all get the same testing so that they can be, benchmarked against one another by using all the same software in the same manner. We can then look back at my history of videos and look at the performance of last year's Ultimate Machine to this year's Ultimate Machine and look at how the technology has changed. And you can do that relatively equally by using all the same benchmarking software. If you change the benchmarking software, then you can't compare apples to apples anymore. I got to find another expression other than apples, because you're never going to find an Apple computer that runs like this at any price. All right. I mean, maybe in the future you will, but today in August of 2019, no. This is something you build or you buy from a performance builder. Yeah, overclocking the CPU and GPU don't make you a better gamer. And if you're into any tournament gaming at all, that's not allowed. It's simply not allowed. If you have to have a faster computer for you to be a better gamer, then I would suggest you're not a good gamer to begin with. Sorry, the machine just went to sleep there. If you require specialty hardware for you to be good at a game, if you require more frames per second than everybody else is playing with, and you think that gives you an advantage, you're nobody I want to game with, because what you're doing is you're just saying, if I have a deeper wallet, I can beat you at a game. I'm more interested in your skill, and you can't buy skill. It's not available for sale. It's only something you can acquire through practice and ambition, desire. You have to be driven. And if you're driven, then the overclocking and the frames per second, as long as they meet a minimal playable quality, you should be able to beat everybody all the time consistently. You should be able to sit at anybody's decent computer running the same game using their keyboard and their mouse, and you should be able to perform just as well. So in the old days, we played Galaga. When I play Galaga, I can go into any Galaga machine in any arcade in the last 30 years, and I will sit there for a half an hour on my quarter. And those games can be tweaked a little bit by the arcade owners. They can speed them up. They can add more players or take away. You get 3 players, you could get 5 players. You could have a fire button that you can hold down and it'll automatically fire. Or there may be a fire button. They're all individually configurable by the arcade. And I can sit at any of those and play it consistently the same. That's just from practice, doing it over and over and over and over. It's a skill I've developed. If I download an emulator and I tweak the emulator that makes the game easier for me, then when I go to the arcade, I'm no good. So the overclocking shouldn't even really be considered unless you have an actual practical application for it, which may involve video rendering or some very intensive process. But in that case, I would still question why you would risk system stability, because if it crashes during a big video render, then it's going to take you longer than if you would have let it run slower. It becomes a tortoise and hare. If you don't know the story of the tortoise and the hare, it deals a lot with overclocking and the price you pay when you risk your system stability in exchange for performance. A car that doesn't run, regardless of how much it's been tuned, if it doesn't run, it doesn't perform well. Or if it's unreliable and it breaks down on you, and the guy in the 1975 Dodge Dart passes you because you're off to the side of the road, who's faster? I don't know why I said Dodge Dart. It's not a bad car. I'm just saying, could be an old, obsolete car. You could have a brand new car. But if it's been tweaked and modified so it's so high performance that it barely runs, it's not so fast. Everybody says, my overclock's stable. Yeah, because you're not pushed it hard enough. Let me push it. Let me see if your overclock's stable. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I need proof. My proof, not yours. All right, let me take a look at my temps because I still can't really see very well here. 74 is all we've hit after 13, almost 14 minutes. That's extraordinarily cool. That's actually cooler than I was expecting it to go. Maybe I'll let it go 16 minutes. Let's keep an eye on that. Oh, that Mugen 5 isn't going to cool it. Oh, that 650 watt power supply is not going to be enough. Oh, call me Eeyore. I'm just a naysayer with no evidence or proof or experience, but I read these articles online and I saw these hobbyists on YouTube, and that's what they said. So the guy who's been doing it for 29 years, he doesn't know squat. Listen to me instead. Okay. Did I do that all out loud? You have issues. I have a whole damn subscription. All right, 14 minutes, 49 seconds. Remember, I did start this late. We've already exceeded 15 minutes at this point. Now, I know the test gets more intense between 15 minutes and 16 minutes. So out of curiosity, I'm going to let it go to hit 16 minutes. I don't normally do that, but I did it in the last video. And I think I'll do it again just to see it ramp up, just to see what we do. That is an amazing cooler for $47.99. Look how well it's doing on an Intel i9 9900K. Scythe is not a sponsor, though I would like them to be one. Is anybody from Scythe watching? I like your coolers. I use them a lot. Sponsor me. Well, whether they do or they don't, I still recommend them. And you know that's genuine. You know, if I'm putting my name on it and I'm recommending it, that means something because I have a business that's depending on that. Many pro gamers use high-end systems and internet because they need it for streaming. Or they could just buy a streaming box and plug it into that. But, you know, what do I know? All right, we're going to 16 minutes right now, and we're breaking 80 degrees centigrade. Let's take a look. 84, 85. We are peaking out. We're at 16 and a half minutes, right? Because I started this a good 15 or 20 seconds late. And you can see the timer and where we're at. Not to mention you've had a clock running on this video the whole time. So everything's in sync. You know there's no editing or trickery happening here. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Why would you waste money on a liquid cooler that you're going to have to replace for 4 or 5 years when your pump dies, when this does just fine with no maintenance? The worst thing that'll happen is you might have to change that fan at some point. Maybe change your thermal compound, but you'd still have to do that on a liquid cooler anyway. So if you're not overclocking it, it's just a waste of money and it adds complexity and cost to your build that's no benefit whatsoever unless you're overclocking it. So there you go. All right, let's go back to, which mouse is it? Is it this one? No, I want this one. Let's go back to full screen projector. There we go. So we're even hitting 87 degrees Celsius at this point, running over 17 minutes, which I never do. I mean, if it's unrealistic to go 15 minutes, 100% on all cores, imagine going this long. Now you'll see how fast the CPU cools down when I shut off Prime 95. Watch these temps. Hold on, let me get the right mouse. Watch these temps right here. Watch how quickly these drop when I shut down this test. And maybe I did have the right mouse. These temps right here. Watch these temps. As soon as I say to stop the test, verifies, are you sure? Yes. Boom. Watch these numbers. That doesn't happen that quick on a liquid cooler. Liquid takes a lot longer to cool down than air. One of the disadvantages, people don't like to talk about the disadvantages with something that they like. If you like AMD, you're going to talk about how great AMD is, and you're going to ignore motherboard manufacturers and chipsets because it goes against what you believe. And if you don't like Intel, you're going to find all the reasons to not like them. And if you don't like, you know, whatever, it's human psychology, and it's very basic, simple thought where you will ignore things or downplay things that are negative about what you personally like, and that you will amplify little things of things you don't like that you'll turn into a big deal to justify your position. But ultimately, as long as you're happy with your parts, don't worry about if anybody else is. And don't worry about what makes them happy. It's none of your business. It has no effect on you whatsoever, and it doesn't build any friendships. So just support one another. If they're happy with their rig, don't tell them you shouldn't have built that or you configured it wrong. Would you want to hear that? Of course not. Let somebody say, hey, do you like it? Yeah. Good job, man. Looks like you do good work, or you pick good parts, and encourage them. Be a friend. All right, let's get that. Let's get the let's get the Heaven benchmark installed on here. So Heaven requires these Visual C decompilers, or compilers rather, installed. Both 32-bit and 64-bit have to be installed, or the software won't work. And it'll tell you have to install these. So what I've done is I've downloaded them and I put them in the directory for the Unigen Heaven benchmarks so that they're there, so I don't have to find them every time I need them. And watch how fast this installs. Are you watching how quickly everything's happening? All done. Let's try it. Oh, I'm kind of in the way now, aren't I? I think I'm going to reverse this. I don't like the way this looks. Let's do this. Let's bring this over here. And then let's put me, where should I put me? Down here? Wait. I'll put me right there. Yeah. So let me hit, I think it's F9 to run the tests. There we go. Benchmark is running. Oh, I don't want to block those numbers down there. Let me resize. Put myself over here. Okay. There we go. That looks pretty good. Now, what sort of power consumption are we using? Anybody want to guess? 333 watts right now is what we're drawing from the wall. 333 watts. I'm over here and I'm looking at my kilowatt power meter, which you can buy on Amazon for about 20 bucks, and it'll tell you how much power is being drawn from anything plugged into it, so you don't have to wonder. There's all this magic electrostatic discharge and magic power consumption, and it's all based on, for the most part on the internet, people's imaginations. But this is evidence, this is fact, this is really happening, this is reality. This is again, a benchmark pushing the frames per second. It's running at 1080 resolution. Obviously, you can go much higher than that with this card. You could run it on multiple monitors. However, in order for your benchmarks to mean anything, you have to run the same benchmarks across all platforms. You can't change the benchmark because you're running better hardware unless you want to compare nothing but better hardware and say dismiss these benchmarks for anything under a certain level of graphics card. It really starts to overcomplicate, in my opinion. So we're still at 333 watts. It's bouncing around a little bit between 320 and 340. Again, power consumption rarely stays level on a computer. As the computer ramps up and as different loads hit it, it's going to require more or less power accordingly, just like a car. It's pretty rare, unless you've got cruise control on a flat road, that you're always using the same amount of horsepower. When you start from a red light to a green light, you're going to be using power to get that momentum built up. Once you establish a momentum and you move into third, fourth, fifth, sixth gear, whatever your gears are, then your engine can level off and your power consumption can be more regulated. However, if you go up a hill or you've got to brake for a turn, again, your horsepower is going to go up or down, and that's just part of what affects your overall gas mileage. So instead of gas mileage, we're measuring power consumption. And just as you need to have enough gas to get you where you want to go, you need to have enough power to provide to the power draw of the items you've selected in your hardware. But most people think hardware requires 2 to 3 times more power than it actually requires. So if somebody says if somebody on the internet tells you you need at least a 900 watt power supply, you probably need a 450, honestly. And I'm just saying, just generally speaking, there are some people on the internet that give accurate information. And if you find one, please let me know. In the meantime, I can tell you from real world experience that you're watching a live video, that the live power consumption on this benchmark is sitting right around 333 watts. So we're under 350. Now, the benchmark may ramp this up a little bit. Nope, drop to 290. We're back up to 335 right now. I think we could hit 400 or higher, maybe. I'm going to keep an eye on it. Again, I'm way down here. And then I'm just paying attention to my kilowatt meter. Pretty much level in at 330, 300 watts out of the wall. Now, even though you see it's running a window, it is running full screen out of the graphics card. It's just my video capture software that I've manually shrunk that video output. The video output is full screen 1080. It always is when I run this benchmark. So what would happen if we had a 450 watt or 500 watt power supply? It would have passed all this just fine. Can you run Prime 95? They're asking in the chat, can I run Prime 95 at the same time? Sure, absolutely. We can do that next. Right now, I just want to look at those benchmark numbers. They're too far away for me to read them. Holy smokes, those are fantastic numbers. Nice. And there is another benchmark we can run specifically for ray tracing on the 2080 Ti. Maybe that might be worth checking out because I've never seen it before. I've seen pictures of it, but I've never actually run it myself. I'm going to stop that timer. Let's take a look. How am I going to do this? Let's see. Go back to camera 2. And we'll close that. Oh, gotta use the other mouse. Close this. We're gonna quit this temporarily. Now, I don't know who would be running Prime 95 in gaming. It's a pretty stupid test, but most tests are stupid. So, you know, how somebody uses a computer in real life is usually less than 30% of any benchmark, honestly. Less than 30% of a benchmark is what the end user will ultimately use on their computer. With a few exceptions being those ultra nerdy people that overclock and push their system. And those are the people that have the most computer problems. They spend the most money and they have the most problems. But whatever, not my money, not my problems. Not my monkeys, not my circus. All right, let's take a look at running Prime 95 here. Which I have in here, Prime 95, right here. We're gonna run this. Again, default value is exactly the same. Bring back the Heaven benchmark, run it full screen. Now it's going to take a little bit longer to load because Prime 95, remember, it's pushing all CPU cores at 100%. And now we're going to run the benchmark right now. And let me resize this so I can see what's going on here. Oh, you're telling me that's not going to let me do that? Oops. How about if I move this one over here so we can see the numbers? Yeah. Now, how many watts are we running through the wall now? Prime 95 pushing all cores at 100%. GPU is being pushed. 218 watts. Explain that to me. 220. 215. $216. $214. It's 100 watts less. Somebody explain that one to me. I would still say that's playable even with Prime 95 using all the cores. System is remaining very, very quiet. I am hearing the fans ramp up a bit, but this is also a really quiet case. When those panels are put on, it's pretty much going to be silent. I can tell you that right now. Frames per second and performance are going to be reduced, obviously, because we've got such a heavy load on the CPU and the GPU happening at once. But we're hovering around 222 watts this whole time. Which I don't know why. Now, obviously, let's try a different benchmark because this is a pointless exercise anyway. Let's go back to, let's see, let me go back to this. And let's quit the benchmark if we can. Oh, wrong one, Carrie. Let's try that again. Keep getting my mice confused. Turn that off for a second. Let's quit. I need this mouse to do that. We'll stop this test. And I want to make this screen bigger so I can see it. For me, it doesn't make it bigger for you, it just makes it bigger for me. And it's the wrong one. I don't need to see myself, I need the desktop. I got the wrong input selected. Let's go to camera 2, full screen, that, transform. Full screen. Projector. Now I can see. Now I need the other mouse. Yeah, I'll just bring up Explorer, that's fine. Edge. Who makes Heaven benchmark? I forgot. Unigen. Benchmarks. I think superposition is ray tracing, I thought. Ooh, that's a big download. .2 gigs. Superposition. VR mode. Loop stress, no. Benchmark, no. I thought, where's the ray tracing? What am I forgetting here? Doesn't say anything about ray tracing. Oh, I shouldn't be typing it in here. It's going to result in the wrong search engine. 3D Mark, these are the folks. One benchmark for all your hardware. Time Spy. World's first 4K. Renders at 4K. Night Raid for mobile computing, Port Royal. First dedicated real-time ray tracing benchmark. Is it free? Can I download it for free? Port Royal. It does include Port Royal in the advanced version, but not in the free version. So maybe not. Maybe not. But I'll tell you what we can do while we're waiting for this. In the meantime, I can run the Cinebench test. Be kind of curious how this performs. It's a pretty quick test. Okay, so there we've got that running. What sort of power consumption are we using now on Cinebench? 138 watts. Right around 126, 130 watts is our consumption on this test. Keeping in mind we're downloading that file at the same time. Whether or not that has any impact on this benchmark, I don't know, but just keep in mind it's doing two things at the same time here. All right, so that's one test down, and the numbers right up there on the top left are the results of that. And then we'll run the GPU test. And right now we're drawing, let's see, 200 watts from the wall. 203, 201, 202, 201. Yeah, easy. Yep. And now it's sitting at 46 watts, which is pretty much the idle. All right, this is an older test, so it doesn't recognize Windows 10. Those of you asking about that, it says it's Windows 8. Look at those benchmark numbers right there. And you can download Cinebench R15 for free. You can run the same free software on your rig to see how it compares to this one. That's why I use the software I use. If I use a paid piece of software, you're unlikely to be able to get that piece of software to test it. And how is our download going? It's taking a while. I'm curious about this test, though. And I am disappointed 3D Mark moved their download and put it onto Steam only for the free version. I don't want to install Steam and create an account. .3D Mark Professional Edition from just $1,495 per year. Business use, home use. Do you want to be a tech that works over here? Or do you want to be a tech that works over here? Carrie, do you have a 100, 200 internet connection? No, I have a 330 internet connection. Cinebench R20 is out. Oh, well, maybe I need to update that. But again, once I run a different version of Cinebench, then it means all the benchmarks that I ran with Cinebench R15 are obsolete and not comparable. So that's the disadvantage of changing the benchmark. Got about 30 seconds left and I can start to install this and see what it's going to do. I'm very curious. And then we're going to wrap up today's feed because I'm already 10 minutes past where I wanted to stop. I still have the Wi-Fi card to add and cable management to do, but we are getting there. We got a later start than I was expecting today. But everything's running very smooth apart from my time management skills. Everything's happening as it should with regards to the build has been very smooth. There's been nothing really unexpected other than the performance is better than I imagined. The power consumption is lower than I imagined. Everything's running better than I was hoping it would. That's always a good thing. Let's see how long it takes to install 1.2 gigabit file. Put me over there. Sure, why not? John Viner says that's a good build with good temps and a nice and stable system, and the Mugen 5 does it again, right? I mean, the video card is a third of the price of the whole system. Everything else is pretty easily attainable, considering, I mean, for what you're getting for the money, in my opinion. Ooh, performance, stress. Let's do performance. Benchmark, game, or virtual reality? Benchmark, run. I've never seen this before. I have no idea what it looks like or what it does. What do I know? Always has to be a first time. And then once you get used to it, they're going to change it. So. Ooh, that's kind of cool. I like how it does that. All right, let's see what kind of power draw we got from the wall right now, since this is so much more intense. 343 watts, 327, 330. We're right back in that 330 range. Yep, still sitting around 330. Oh, I might have seen this before. Looks a little familiar to me. $319. I don't see any numbers. Is my video covering up any numbers? Oh, yeah. Yeah, let me move myself over there. Now you can see the numbers. And let me check my wattage from the wall here, see where we're at. 327, 323, 335, 334. Ooh, a lot of stuff going on there. 328, 333, 333, 335, 333, 330, 325, 327, 328, 336. I'm shocked. I mean, I thought I would be exceeding 400 watts at some point. I've yet to see this thing break 350. Yeah, we're done. It never broke 350. Wattage just dropped. It's now at 63, 53, 45, 42, 42.9, 43.9, 43.5. Pretty idle, right in the low 40 watt range right now. There's the benchmark results. If you want to download that test and run it on your rig and compare, you can see everything I've done here live. You can replicate it. Again, all the software is free. A couple of things are left to do on the system, and that's going to include putting the Wi-Fi card in. I've got to put a code, an activation code, and activate Windows 10. And there's probably some software we can install for the RGB lighting, I'm guessing. I can feel a lot of heat. I can feel it right by the graphics card. So it looks like this graphics card is not blowing air out the back. So there's two different ways graphics cards move air. One is to move it across the card out the back, and the other is to move it out through the sides. And this graphics card design appears to be pushing the air out this way. So if we put a fan on that blowing the air, that would be a bad idea to push air against it. But if we put this fan here, which is running air across here and then out the back, that's where you want your airflow to go. So it's not creating a dead zone. But yeah, it's pushing air out the side because I can feel it. And it's warm. I'd be curious what the temps on this card are hitting. But you see there's no blue screens. I have not turned on the extreme memory profile yet. Don't rush to do that, because if you start having blue screens or other errors, you won't know why. So if the system's running rock solid, and you know through all the benchmarks it's running solid, then turn on your XMP and run your benchmarks again. And if the benchmarks of the system become unstable, you've got a memory compatibility issue with your chipset, or perhaps a bad memory module. That's why there's a QVC or a QVL, a qualified vendor list that's included in the manual with the motherboard that will tell you which RAM they've tested and verified works. That doesn't mean other RAM won't work. It just means those are the only ones they've tested. So if you don't want to be a pioneer and you don't want to risk it, then buy something on the QVL list, which isn't going to be shopping for the lowest price. You can shop for the lowest price for what's available on the QVL list. But if you're shopping purely on price alone, you may have to disable XMP. On an Intel motherboard, you probably won't notice any difference, XMP on or off. You probably, as an end user, will not see any actual difference. Maybe in your benchmarks you'll see something, but you're unlikely to notice anything unless you're using onboard video or you're using the latest generation of AMD chips, which supposedly do benefit slightly from faster memory. Whether or not you as a human being notice it, I don't know yet, because I haven't even so much as seen in person a 3000 series Zen 2 chip from Ryzen. So there was Zen, then Zen Plus, and now Zen 2. And Zen 2 apparently benefits from faster RAM, but on Intel, not so much. And again, none of that makes you a better gamer. I just want to say, if you want to be a better gamer, it's not in your video card, and it's not in your mouse, and it's not in your keyboard. It's in you. So, all right. Thank you guys so much for watching the broadcast today. Let me go full screen here. Let's turn that off. And let's go transform that to full screen. Hey, there I am. Okay. So one more shout out to everybody who's contributed and supported the channel during today's broadcast. And that includes Madi UL. This is Madi's system. So thank you to Madi for allowing us to film his build so we can share his build with you guys. Winston Anglu. Winston's a regular contributor, watches us from Vancouver, Canada. Thank you, Winston. Rick Hubbard and Ryan Farmer and Wild One and Sid, the Sims channel, Lurchicus, Sharon Idle, Trudy Brooks, Jan Milhanov, Zerloff, Ian McLeod, Stephen Anderson, Craig Huchin, Stephen39A, Jeremy Kramer, Chester Hughes, James Duke, and the first contribution came in from Madi. So thank you guys so much for, again, supporting the channel. Thanks for all of you watching. If you've missed part one of this video, it's available for you to watch right now. Just click on my name. Just below the video, you'll see my name or like a logo. Click on that, and then there should be a tab that says Videos. Click on that, and you'll see my entire video library of around 800 or 900 videos that are available for you to watch. And everything from exposing scammers, computer repairs, computer upgrades, and new computer builds going all the way back 10 years. So, you know, if you got nothing else going on, it's commercial free for the most part. You'll see I'm not here hawking any products. I don't sell products. I have merch that I didn't want to sell, that people like sell some merch, so we do it at kerryholzman.com. The Amazon links below this video point to all the products you see in my video, and if you purchase using any of my links that take you to Amazon, then you make any purchase at all from my link that took you to Amazon, even if you purchase something that's not related to the link, but it was during that visit to Amazon you made a purchase, I make a small commission. It goes to the channel. Your price is still the same. It's a good way to support the channel. You're going to buy stuff from Amazon anyway. If enough of you do that, that can add up to more than what YouTube pays. That's how bad YouTube pays. And what else? Yeah, you're the sponsors. So at least for now, and that is why I work in my kitchen. The minute I go to a studio, I'm probably going to have to go with some sponsors to afford, you know, to bring in an extra 20, 30 grand a year to pay for a studio. So that being said, if I can work out of the house, it keeps it real, because chances are if you're watching at home, this is where you'll be building yours. It's a nice anti-static environment. It's well lit. If you got the counter, it's a great working space. A kitchen table works too. Just put something down on the, you know, even if it's a piece of cardboard or a piece of wood, to prevent scratching your countertops or your tabletop. That's all. Don't put down a towel or a cloth, because that would encourage electrostatic discharge. So work smartly. That being said, I appreciate everybody who's tuned in and watched. I hope I will see you all again tomorrow. And if you like the video, please click the thumbs up located just below the video. Give it that clicky clicky. If you want to see more videos like this, that's how you can let the creator know. And if you want to be made available, if you want to know when new videos are available, hit that subscribe button, click the bell icon to turn on the notifications. If you're not getting the live notifications, check your spam filter, check to make sure that bell icon is clicked. You can click it and unclick it to reset it. Have you tried turning it off and on again? And again, if you haven't seen John Lovett's responding to me about people saying I look like him, that's also in the video. It's like a 1-minute video, but it's pretty funny and it's cool. It's cool that he did it. So thanks, you guys. I will see you all tomorrow. Until then, bye for now. No, that's not right. I see what I did there. Hold on, I gotta fix that. When I was resizing windows, I resized one and I didn't know which one it was. Okay, I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye. I'm just messing around to see if you're still watching. Are you still here? It's over. We're done. There's no more. I'm serious. The show is done. Why are you still watching this?